Lasting Change Workbook, the anti-boring playbook to rewire your habits, upgrade your identity, and stay consistent for life, by John Warrior. Introduction: The personal journey to lasting change. The day my secret disgusting habit was exposed and I swore to change. When I was 13 years old, I had a habit so disgusting that even thinking about it now makes me cringe. But hey, we're all friends here, right? No judgment zone? Good. So here's the deal. I was a habitual nail biter, but not just regular nail biting. No. I took things to a higher level of nasty. I didn't just chew my nails. I also collected the little bits and kept them in my pocket. Yup. Like some kind of deranged squirrel hoarding acorns, except my acorns were disgusting little DNA samples of past anxiety attacks. I thought nobody knew. I thought I was smooth. Until one day, I was in class, casually zoning out, hand in my pocket, playing with my collection. I know, horrifying. That's when my best friend at the time, Jake, saw me do it. Jake said, "Bro, what are you doing?" I said, nothing. Jake said, "Why do you look like you're holding something?" I said, "No reason." Jake said, "Show me your hand." I said, "No." Jake, being a true menace to society, grabbed my hand, pulled it out of my pocket, and bam! A small pile of old chewed-up nails fell onto my desk in broad daylight. The silence that followed? Deafening. The look on Jake's face? Pure horror. The reaction from the rest of the class? Screaming. I became that kid for the rest of the semester. Teachers gave me side eyes. People made clipping motions when I walked by. And in that moment, I made a sacred vow to myself. I will change. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because nothing motivates true transformation like public shame and the realization that you've basically been walking around with a pocket-sized crime scene. That was my first real wake-up call about bad habits, how they sneak in, how we ignore them, and how sometimes we don't realize how ridiculous they are until we get caught. It took me years to figure out how to actually change habits without relying on sheer embarrassment. And that's exactly why this book exists, so you don't have to go through the same kind of horrific middle school trauma just to make a change. How I stumbled into the secret of lasting change. Hint: it wasn't pretty. If you'd told me years ago that I'd be writing a book about personal transformation, I would have laughed in your face. Probably with a mouthful of pizza. Back then, I was a self-proclaimed serial starter, a guy who could start a diet on Monday, abandon it by Wednesday, and completely forget it existed by Friday, usually with a burger in one hand and fries in the other. Sound familiar? I had read all the self-help books, watched motivational videos, and even attended those awkward Find Your Purpose workshops where people pretend to love group exercises. Nothing stuck. I'd get pumped for a few days, maybe even a week, and then boom, back to old habits. It was like my brain was playing an endless game of let's pretend to change, but not really. Then life hit me with a 2x4, metaphorically, thankfully. I was deep into my doctoral research at Leiden University, studying behavioral science and what makes personal change actually stick. It turns out most people fail because they try to change everything at once, and their brains freak out. That's when I had my aha moment. Change isn't about massive, life-altering shifts. It's about small, daily wins that stack up over time, like tiny Lego bricks building an unshakable foundation. This realization led me to develop what I now call the momentum loop method, and I started testing it on myself. Fast forward to today, and this method has helped over 10,000 people create lasting change without the usual burnout, frustration, or backsliding. Why most people fail at change, and why it's not your fault. Let's be real. How many times have you tried to improve your life and ended up right back where you started? Maybe you tried waking up at 5 a.m., cutting sugar, meditating, journaling, running marathons, and learning a new language all at once. You lasted, a week? A day? A solid 30 minutes before deciding the universe was against you? Here's the cold, hard truth. Your brain is not built for massive change. It resists anything that feels too big, because survival mode says nope. It defaults to comfort, because comfort means safety. It gets overwhelmed easily, because modern life is already stressful enough. That's why most self-improvement advice fails miserably. It demands too much, too fast, and your brain throws a tantrum, leading to a spectacular crash and burn. But there's a solution. Instead of forcing change, we'll sneak it in so your brain doesn't even realize what's happening until, bam, one day you wake up and realize you've transformed without breaking a sweat. The big idea, the momentum loop method. Here's where things get fun. The momentum loop works because it follows your brain's natural wiring, making change feel easy, sustainable, and, dare I say, fun. It revolves around 3 simple but powerful steps. Step 1, micro-action mastery, 3-minute daily wins. Why it works. Your brain loves quick wins and small successes. They release dopamine, the feel-good chemical, making you want to keep going. How we use it. You'll complete tiny daily tasks that feel effortless, but create massive results over time. Step 2, identity shift activation, becoming future you. Why it works. You don't change by forcing habits. You change by becoming the kind of person who does those habits naturally. How we use it, you'll trick your brain into seeing yourself as the person who follows through until it becomes reality. Step 3, the momentum multiplier, breaking the goal plateau. Why it works. Motivation dies when a goal is too small. The brain thrives on challenges just outside its comfort zone. How we use it. You'll scale your success in a way that feels exciting, not exhausting. And the best part? It all happens in just 3 minutes a day. Yes, really. 3 freaking minutes. That's shorter than most people spend scrolling on their phones while pretending to be productive. How this book is structured. Your transformation roadmap. Now that you know what's coming, here's how we'll make it happen. Part 1, the momentum loop method. This section will walk you through the 3 steps in detail with science-backed strategies, hilarious analogies, and practical exercises that make them stick. Part 2, the 30-day challenge. Each day, you'll get a simple 3-minute action that builds momentum and rewires your brain for success. By the end of 30 days, you won't just be trying to change, you'll be changed. Part 3, lifelong success strategies. Want to keep the momentum going? This final section will teach you how to future-proof your transformation so you don't slide back into old habits. Because let's be honest, life happens. Ready? Let's do this. You don't need more willpower. You don't need more time. You don't need to fix yourself. Spoiler, you were never broken to begin with. All you need is a system that works with your brain, not against it. And that's exactly what this book will give you. So, let's get started. Your future self is waiting. Part 1, the momentum loop method, mastering lasting change. Chapter 1, the power of micro actions, 3-minute daily wins. The New Year's resolution disaster, how I failed before I even started. It was January 1st, and like every other overly ambitious human on the planet, I had declared that this year would be different. This was going to be the year I got fit, woke up at 5 a.m., journaled daily, read 100 books, learned a new language, and somehow achieved inner peace, all before breakfast. So, naturally, I did what every self-improvement addict does. I went all in. I bought the expensive gym membership, downloaded 4 habit tracking apps, ordered a planner so complicated it required an instruction manual, and even set 5 alarms labeled "Get Up or Stay Mediocre Forever." On January 2nd, I actually made it to the gym. I walked in, feeling like I had already unlocked peak human potential. I stretched, did some squats, lifted something moderately heavy, and immediately started checking my arms in the mirror for results. Nothing yet. Weird. By January 3rd, I was sore in places I didn't know existed. My muscles felt like they had been through a medieval torture device, and I somehow managed to convince myself that I had earned a rest day, a well-deserved one, maybe even a cheat meal. By January 5th, the planner was collecting dust. The gym key fob had somehow found its way to the bottom of my bag. The alarms, all snoozed. I had officially failed in less than a week. Why this happens to everyone? Yes, even you. The problem wasn't that I lacked discipline. It wasn't that I was lazy. The problem was that I had set myself up for failure before I even started. We all do it. We get excited and decide that tomorrow will be the day we completely transform our lives. No transition period, no ramp-up time, just a cold turkey overhaul of every bad habit we've ever had. And it never works. The truth? Big goals are intimidating. Small wins are magic. And that's exactly why we're going to focus on the opposite approach in this book. Micro actions that sneak change into your life before your brain even realizes what's happening. Because guess what? You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need 3 minutes a day. And trust me, even your snooze button loving self can handle that. The science of why big goals fail. All right, time for some tough love. Your brain is a drama queen. It doesn't care that you want to be more productive, lose weight, or wake up earlier. The second you try to make a drastic change, your brain is like, whoa, 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 what is happening here? And immediately hits the brakes. Why? Because your brain is designed for survival, not self-improvement. The survival mode problem. Big, sudden changes feel risky, and your brain loves routine because routine equals safety. Anything that disrupts that? Instant mental resistance. That's why waking up at 5 a.m. sounds great in theory, but feels like cruel and unusual punishment when the alarm actually goes off. The willpower myth. People think they fail at change because they lack willpower. Wrong. Willpower is like a phone battery. It drains as you use it. If you rely on sheer willpower to make big changes, guess what? You're going to run out fast. That's why you start the day with ambitious goals and end it eating cereal straight from the box at midnight. Willpower is unreliable. Strategy is everything. The too much, too soon trap. You wouldn't try to eat an entire pizza in one bite. Your mouth isn't built for that, unless you're a snake, in which case, respect. But that's exactly what we do when we set massive goals. The better way? Small, bite-sized changes, one slice at a time. The micro-habit advantage. Here's the hack. Small, daily actions trick your brain into accepting change. They don't trigger survival mode. They don't drain willpower. They build momentum effortlessly. That's why 3 minutes a day is the secret weapon. It's so small, your brain doesn't resist. But do it consistently, and suddenly you've built a habit before you even realize it. The "it's too easy" effect. Your brain is lazy. Not in a bad way, it's just incredibly efficient. It doesn't want to waste energy on things that seem unnecessary or overwhelming. That's why you'll check Instagram 27 times a day without thinking. But when it's time to go for a run or write that report, suddenly you need a snack, a nap, and maybe a 2-hour documentary about penguins. Here's the trick. Your brain loves low-effort tasks. Things that feel effortless get repeated. That's why brushing your teeth feels automatic. You don't stand in front of the mirror every night debating whether to do it. You just do. It's easy, expected, and normal. Now, imagine if self-improvement could feel that way. That's what 3-minute habits do. They're so effortless that your brain doesn't see them as a threat. You're not working hard or making sacrifices. You're just doing something so tiny it almost feels pointless. But here's the secret. Those tiny efforts add up fast. The momentum loop begins here. Ever notice that just putting on workout clothes makes you more likely to exercise? Or that washing one dish turns into cleaning the whole sink? That's the momentum loop in action. When you do something small daily, you build momentum. You start to associate yourself with the action. If you do even one push-up every day, eventually, you don't just feel like someone who tries to work out. You are a person who works out. You reinforce your new identity with micro actions. It's not about the 3 minutes. It's about the consistency. It's about reinforcing identity through action. The 3-minute rule. Here's your new golden rule. If something takes less than 3 minutes, do it now. No overthinking, no procrastination, no "I'll do it later," because later never comes. If it's small and quick, just get it done. Some examples of tiny transformative actions. 3 minutes of reading. That's 1,000 extra minutes of learning in a year. 3 minutes of stretching. Your future back pain just thanked you. 3 minutes of planning your day. No more "what was I supposed to do again" moments. 3 minutes of deep breathing. Goodbye stress. Hello Zen mode. Sounds ridiculous, right? But this is how change starts. The brushing your teeth metaphor. Let's be real. No one ever says, "I was way too busy to brush my teeth today." You just do it. You don't debate it. You don't need motivation. You don't need a pep talk. It's just part of your day. That's exactly how your new habits should feel. So simple that skipping them feels weird. And it all starts with just 3 minutes a day. The micro-win dopamine effect. Every time you accomplish something, even something ridiculously small, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical. This is the same chemical that makes you feel awesome after a good workout or when you finally check something off your to-do list. But here's the fun part. Your brain doesn't care how small the win is. It still gives you a little dopamine boost just for finishing something. This is why video games are so addictive. Constant tiny rewards keep you playing. And it's why small daily habits feel good and make you want to continue. If you've ever written down something you already finished on a to-do list just so you could cross it off, don't lie, we've all done it. Congratulations. You've successfully hacked your dopamine system. So what happens when you start stacking tiny wins every day? You get hooked on progress. And that's when the real magic begins. How tiny actions multiply over time. A single glass of water won't make you healthy. A single push-up won't make you fit. But over time, small, repeated actions compound, just like interest in a bank account. At first, progress feels invisible. You don't feel like you're getting stronger after a few push-ups. You don't feel like your business is growing after a few minutes of focused work. But keep going, and suddenly, momentum kicks in. What once felt like effort becomes second nature. This is where most people give up. They expect overnight success. But real, lasting change isn't about dramatic, fewer, unsustainable effort. It's about stacking tiny, consistent actions until they become part of who you are. Examples of tiny wins to big wins. 1 push-up a day, a full fitness transformation. A guy started doing 1 push-up a day. That's it. But once he was already on the floor, it felt ridiculous not to do a few more. Eventually, that habit grew into full-body workouts, and over time, he got in the best shape of his life. 1 sentence a day, a finished book. A woman struggling to write her novel committed to 1 sentence a day. Some days she wrote more, but even when motivation was low, she at least wrote something. 2 years later, a completed book. 15 minutes a day, a successful business. A freelancer wanted to grow his business but felt overwhelmed. Instead of trying to overhaul his schedule, he committed to just 15 minutes a day of focused work. A few months later, those minutes added up to real progress, landing him bigger clients and a higher income. Small, consistent efforts may not seem impressive at first, but they always lead to results. Your 3-minute snowball task for today. Here's your challenge. Start a 3-minute habit right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. If you want to read more, read 1 page. If you want to move more, do 1 stretch. If you want to journal, write 1 sentence. It doesn't matter what it is. Just pick 1 micro action and do it. Congratulations, you just created momentum. Now keep going. Action step, your first 3-minute challenge. All right, you've made it this far, which means you now understand that tiny wins build momentum and small habits lead to big results. Now it's time to take action. But don't worry, I'm not about to tell you to wake up at 4:30 a.m., run a marathon, or give up carbs. We're going to start so small that your brain won't even have the chance to resist. Step 1, choose your 3-minute habit. Your first task is simple. Pick a tiny action that aligns with something you want to improve. Don't overthink it. Just pick one from the list below, or make up your own. Want to read more? Read 1 page. Want to be more active? Stretch for 3 minutes. Want to be more mindful? Do 3 minutes of deep breathing. Want to be more organized? Write down 3 things you need to do today. Want to start journaling? Write 1 sentence. That's it. Just pick one, right now. Step 2, set a reminder. Here's the thing. If you don't set a reminder, you'll forget. It's not because you're lazy. It's because your brain has decades of programming that say, nah, let's just keep doing what we've always done. So, take 10 seconds right now and set an alarm. Put a sticky note on your desk or tie a string around your finger if you're into that kind of old school technique. Step 3, do it right now. I'm serious. Don't just read this and think, yeah, I'll do it later. Later is a trap. Later never comes. So before you close this book, do your 3-minute habit right now. Even if it feels too easy, even if it feels ridiculous, even if your brain is screaming, this won't make a difference. Just do it. Because today, you're not just reading about change, you're starting it. So, you did it. You took your first step. Maybe it felt too easy. Maybe you're thinking, seriously? That's it? 3 minutes? How is this going to change my life? That's the magic of it. Change doesn't come from one heroic effort. It comes from stacking tiny wins day after day until they become part of who you are. Right now, you're not just someone who wants to change, you're someone who took action. And that's a big deal. Here's what's going to happen next. Over the next 30 days, you'll keep showing up. You'll keep proving to yourself that you follow through. Some days will feel effortless. Other days, life will throw obstacles at you, and you'll want to quit. But you won't. Because now you know the secret. You don't need to move mountains. You just need to take another 3-minute step, and something else will start happening. Your identity will shift. You'll no longer see yourself as someone who tries to improve. You'll see yourself as someone who actually follows through. And once you believe that, everything changes. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into this shift. Because here's the truth. Lasting change isn't just about action. It's about who you believe you are. So let's talk about how to become the version of yourself that sticks with it. Takeaway. You just finished a chapter of this book. That means you're already on a streak. Don't stop now. Your Chapter 1 activation exercises. Grab a notebook, open a notes app, or just sit somewhere quiet and reflect. The goal here isn't to think about these questions, it's to take action on them. Clarity leads to change. 1. The big goal graveyard reflection. Think of a big goal you once set for yourself but never achieved. Maybe it was a fitness plan, a side business, or a new habit. What happened? Why did you stop? Was it too overwhelming? Too vague? Did you lose motivation? Now, break that big goal into the smallest possible starting step, something you could do in 3 minutes or less. Write it down. Could you commit to that tiny step today? If yes, do it. If no, simplify even further. 2. The 3-minute experiment. Pick something you've been meaning to improve. Reading, stretching, journaling, deep breathing, whatever. Instead of overhauling your life, try this. Set a timer for 3 minutes and just start. At the end of the 3 minutes, notice how you feel. Did you want to keep going? Did it feel effortless? If yes, you just hacked your brain's resistance to change. Repeat tomorrow. 3. The dopamine tracker. Your brain loves small wins. It releases dopamine when you accomplish something, no matter how small. Over the next 3 days, track every small win. Drinking a glass of water, sending that email, choosing fruit over junk food. At the end of each day, review your list. Notice how much you actually do when you stop expecting instant perfection. Momentum isn't built on massive success. It's built on showing up. 4. The pizza slice progress method. Big goals are like trying to eat an entire pizza in one bite. Impossible and a choking hazard. But one slice at a time? Easy. Take a goal you're working on and slice it into the smallest, most manageable pieces possible. Example, want to write a book? Slice 1. Open a blank document. Slice 2 goals, write 1 sentence. Slice 3, repeat tomorrow. Look at your goal now. Does it feel easier? If yes, you're thinking the right way. If not, keep slicing smaller. 5. The new identity statement. Your actions shape your identity, but your identity also shapes your actions. Instead of saying, I want to start reading more, shift your identity first. I am someone who reads every day. Write a new identity statement for yourself. I am becoming the kind of person who... Say it out loud. Write it down where you'll see it daily. Small shifts in identity lead to lasting habits. Activation in action. This isn't a chapter to think about. It's a chapter to start living. Do one of these exercises today, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now. Your future self is waiting. Chapter 2, Identity Shift Activation, Becoming Your Future Self. Why your current identity is keeping you stuck. Have you ever told yourself, I'm just not the kind of person who stays consistent? Or, I've never been great at sticking to habits. If so, congratulations, you've just witnessed identity at work. Your brain is constantly running a program in the background, reinforcing whatever identity you believe about yourself. If you think of yourself as someone who struggles to follow through, your brain is going to look for evidence to prove that true. This is called confirmation bias. Your brain loves being right, even when it's working against you. Think about it. If you've ever said, I'm terrible at waking up early, your brain will remember every failed attempt, every time you hit snooze, and every miserable morning spent cursing your alarm clock. But what about the times you actually woke up on time? Your brain conveniently forgets those moments because they don't fit the identity you've built for yourself. The self-image trap. Here's the real problem. Your actions will always try to stay consistent with your self-image. If deep down you believe you're not a morning person, no matter how many times you set your alarm early, you'll eventually revert back to snoozing. Not because you're incapable of waking up early, but because you don't see yourself as the kind of person who does it effortlessly. This is why people struggle with lasting change. They focus on behavior without shifting identity, and that's like trying to build a house on a foundation made of sand. It won't last. Breaking free from your default identity. So how do you escape the self-image trap? You start by questioning the labels you've given yourself. If you've spent years believing you're bad at being consistent, what if that's just an outdated version of you? What if you're actually someone capable of showing up daily, but you've never given yourself the chance to believe it? The truth is, you are not your past habits. Your identity isn't fixed. It's just a collection of stories you've told yourself. And the good news? You can rewrite those stories. Think of your identity like the software running in the background of your life. If it's outdated, your actions will always crash. The key isn't just changing habits, it's updating the software to align with the person you want to become. Now that you understand why your current identity has been holding you back, let's talk about how to start shifting into the version of you that actually follows through. The power of identity-based habits. If you want lasting change, stop focusing on what you need to do and start focusing on who you need to become. Most people make the mistake of trying to change behavior first. They say things like, I need to go to the gym more, or I should start waking up earlier. But here's the truth. Your actions will always default to match your identity. If deep down you still see yourself as someone who struggles with fitness or not a morning person, you'll keep sabotaging yourself, no matter how hard you try. The identity loop. Action, reinforcement, belief, action. Your habits don't just shape your results, they shape your identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. The more votes you cast for a certain identity, the more your brain starts to accept it as truth. If you write one sentence every day, you become a writer. If you meditate for a few minutes daily, you become a mindful person. If you exercise regularly, even in small amounts, you become an active person. It's not about achieving perfection overnight. It's about reinforcing an identity so often that it feels like part of you. The goal isn't just to work out or eat better or be productive. The goal is to become the kind of person who naturally does those things. The power of small identity shifts. You don't need to completely reinvent yourself overnight. In fact, that's a terrible strategy. Massive identity shifts feel fake and unsustainable. The secret? Micro shifts. Instead of forcing yourself into a new identity, grow into it. Instead of saying, I'm going to be a disciplined person starting today, say, I am becoming a person who follows through. Instead of, I have to be a runner, say, I am someone who moves my body every day. Instead of, I am bad at consistency, say, I am working on being more consistent. See the difference? The first version feels like pressure. The second version feels realistic and achievable. Your first identity shift exercise. Let's make this real. Right now, take one habit you want to build and create a new identity statement around it. Instead of focusing on the action, focus on the person you are becoming. Fill in the blank. I am becoming the kind of person who... Write it down. Say it out loud. Remind yourself of it daily. Because the truth is, you are not trying to change. You are already changing. Takeaway. You don't need more willpower. You need an identity upgrade. How to become the person who follows through. You already know that habits shape identity. But here's the missing piece. Lasting change isn't about forcing yourself to be disciplined. It's about making follow-through feel natural. And that means setting yourself up in a way where success happens almost automatically. Think about it. When was the last time you had to remind yourself to brush your teeth? Probably never. It's not because you have some iron willpower or an extreme love of toothpaste. It's because brushing your teeth is just what you do. It's so ingrained in your identity that skipping it would feel weird. That's the goal with any habit. You want it to become part of who you are, rather than something you have to force yourself to do every day. One of the easiest ways to create this effect is by shaping your environment to match your new identity. If you want to become a person who reads every day, don't rely on motivation. Just leave a book on your pillow. If you want to be someone who eats healthier, don't keep junk food in your kitchen. If you want to start working out, lay your workout clothes next to your bed before you go to sleep. Small environmental tweaks make decisions effortless rather than a daily struggle. Another trick, start acting like your future you right now. Imagine the version of yourself who has already mastered the habit you're working on. How does that person think? How do they behave? If you were already the kind of person who never skipped workouts, what would you do today? If you were already a highly productive person, how would you handle the next hour? Start stepping into that identity now, even before you feel ready. The more you act like the person you want to become, the faster your brain accepts that identity as the real you. I once had a friend who wanted to become a runner, but kept struggling to stick to a routine. Every time he tried to run, he felt like an imposter, like he was just pretending to be a runner, rather than actually being one. So instead of setting big running goals, he started telling himself he was already a runner. And he didn't just think it, he started dressing like a runner, following running communities, and even referring to himself as a runner in conversations. And guess what? Within a few months, running wasn't something he tried to do anymore. It was just who he was. The key takeaway: you don't have to wait until you've mastered a habit to become the kind of person who does it. You just have to start showing up as that person today. Final thought: if you want lasting change, don't just change what you do. Change who you believe you are. Your Chapter 2, Identity Exercises. This chapter isn't about trying to change. It's about stepping into your future you. These exercises are designed to help you break free from limiting identities and start seeing yourself as the person who follows through. 1. The What's Keeping Me Stuck audit. Take a moment and write down any identity-based statements you tell yourself. Examples: I've never been good at staying consistent. I'm just not a morning person. I always give up on goals eventually. Now, challenge them. Are these facts or just stories you've been repeating? If someone had a completely different upbringing, would they believe the same thing? Rewrite each statement as a new identity that supports who you want to become. Instead of I always give up, say I am someone who learns how to adapt and persist. 2. The future you, visualization. Close your eyes and imagine the version of yourself who has already achieved the habit or goal you're working toward. How does that person wake up? What do they prioritize? What do they say yes to? What do they say no to? Write down 3 key behaviors this version of you has mastered. Now, pick one behavior and do it today. No hesitation. The fastest way to become future you is to start acting like them right now. 3. The Every Action is a Vote tracker. Your habits don't just shape your results, they shape your identity. Every small action is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. For the next 7 days, track tiny actions that reinforce your new identity. Did you write one sentence? Vote, cast. I'm a writer. Did you exercise for 2 minutes? Vote cast. I'm an active person. After a week, review your votes. See how much proof you've created for your new identity already. 4. The Identity Shift Commitment statement. Instead of focusing on what you need to do, rewrite your goal as a statement of identity. Example: instead of I need to exercise more, say I am someone who moves their body daily. Instead of I should eat healthier, say I am a person who nourishes their body with good food. Write your new identity statement. Read it every morning. Remind yourself you don't need to force discipline when you align your actions with who you already believe you are. 5. The impossible to miss environmental shift. Your environment shapes your habits more than willpower ever could. Make one small change to your space that forces you to act in alignment with your new identity. Want to read daily? Put a book where your phone usually sits. Want to start journaling? Leave a notebook on your pillow. Want to eat healthier? Put snacks in clear containers and hide the junk food. Make success the default option, not something you have to fight for. Identity in action. Lasting change isn't about willpower. It's about becoming the person who follows through. Choose one of these exercises and do it today. Your future you is already waiting. How's your reading experience so far? If you've made it this far, it means you're serious about growth, and I appreciate you for that. I have a small favor to ask. Your feedback matters. Leaving a review takes just 1 minute, but it makes a huge impact. It helps others find this book. It spreads the message of lasting change, and it tells me what resonated with you the most. If this book has helped you, even in a small way, I'd love to hear about it. Your thoughts might be the push someone else needs to finally take action. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now, let's keep building that momentum. Chapter 3. The Momentum Multiplier, Breaking the Goal Plateau. Why most people quit at the halfway mark. Ever started something feeling unstoppable, only to find yourself barely holding on halfway through? Whether it's a new habit, a fitness goal, or even a work project, the middle is where most people quit. The excitement that got you started fades, and suddenly, continuing feels like a chore. Welcome to the dreaded middle slump. The middle slump problem. At the beginning of any goal, everything feels fresh. The motivation is high, the possibilities seem endless, and you're convinced that this time will be different. You're riding a wave of excitement, and the effort feels almost effortless. Then, somewhere around the halfway mark, reality sets in. The novelty wears off, and you start questioning whether it's even worth it. This isn't just you. It's a predictable psychological pattern. Your brain thrives on newness, which is why the start of a habit feels so rewarding. But as the days pass, the brain starts asking, where's my instant reward? When progress isn't as obvious or exciting anymore, the temptation to quit creeps in. The motivation dip. Why progress slows and feels pointless. Your brain is wired to crave immediate rewards. In the early stages of a new habit, small wins come fast. Maybe you lost a few pounds quickly, got positive feedback on your new project, or felt a boost of energy from your morning workouts. But after a while, progress slows. The weight loss plateaus. The compliments stop rolling in. The workouts feel routine instead of exhilarating. This is where the brain plays tricks on you. It assumes that if results slow down, the effort must not be working anymore. But that's a huge mistake. Progress isn't linear. It's exponential. The early wins are just the setup for the massive breakthroughs that happen later. But most people don't stick around long enough to experience them. Takeaway. Most people never experience real transformation because they quit at 99 degrees Celsius. But the ones who keep going, they reach the boiling point where effort turns into momentum, and that's where everything changes. The 10x principle. Why small goals kill motivation. If you've ever set a realistic goal only to lose interest halfway through, here's a hard truth. Playing it safe is the fastest way to kill motivation. Most people think setting smaller goals makes them easier to achieve, but the reality is that small goals often lead to small results, and that's boring. The counterintuitive truth about goals. At first, setting small goals makes sense. If you aim low, you're more likely to hit your target, right? Technically, yes. But here's the catch. When a goal doesn't challenge you, it doesn't excite you either. When you set an easy goal, your brain doesn't feel the urgency or the reward of achieving something meaningful. Instead, you start procrastinating because deep down, you know the effort isn't even worth it. Compare that to a goal that's 10 times bigger than what you think is possible. Now, your brain wakes up. It gets excited. It starts asking, how can I make this work? Rather than, do I even feel like doing this? This is why ambitious people don't get burnt out from big goals. They get burnt out from small, uninspiring ones. The 10x rule. Why aiming bigger works better. The 10x rule, a concept made popular by Grant Cardone, suggests that instead of setting realistic goals, you should set goals that feel almost impossible. Why? Because when a goal is big enough, it forces you to think differently, not just work harder. Let's say your goal is to earn an extra $5,000 this year. That's achievable, but it's not going to change your life. Your brain will probably resort to small, predictable actions to get there, cutting expenses, picking up some extra work, etc. But what if you aimed for $50,000 instead? Suddenly, your mind shifts. You start looking for entirely new opportunities, new strategies, new ways of thinking that you never would have considered with a smaller goal. You don't just work harder, you work smarter. And here's the twist. When you aim for 10x growth, even if you don't fully reach it, you'll still achieve far more than if you had played it safe. This is why successful entrepreneurs, athletes, and high performers always aim higher than what seems logical. Why playing it safe leads to burnout. Ironically, setting small goals is what makes people burn out, not big ones. When a goal is too small, it feels insignificant, which makes it easy to give up on when things get tough. But when a goal is big enough to be inspiring, it generates energy. It pulls you forward. Think about athletes who train for the Olympics. Their training is grueling, but they don't burn out the way someone forcing themselves to do 10 push-ups a day does. Why? Because their goal is so big that it keeps them engaged and excited. Small, uninspiring goals don't create that kind of fire. It's like trying to jog without a finish line. If there's no compelling destination ahead, every step feels pointless. But if you know you're racing towards something massive, you'll naturally find the energy to push through. Case study: Elon Musk and impossible goals. Few people embody the 10x principle better than Elon Musk. When he set out to build Tesla, he didn't say, let's make an electric car that's slightly better than the competition. No, he set out to revolutionize the entire auto industry. When he started SpaceX, he wasn't thinking, let's build a better satellite company. He was thinking, let's make humanity a multiplanetary species. These kinds of massive goals forced Musk and his teams to think beyond conventional solutions. And even though they failed multiple times along the way, those failures happened at a level far beyond what most people even attempt. Now, you don't have to be the next Elon Musk, but you do need to stop playing small if you want real results. The moment you let go of realistic goals and embrace ones that feel borderline unbelievable, you'll feel something shift: your energy, your drive, your ability to push through obstacles. How to apply the 10x principle to small habits. So, does this mean you should aim to run a marathon tomorrow if you can barely jog around the block? No, but it does mean you should think bigger in terms of what's possible. If you're aiming to exercise more, don't just set a goal to work out a little each week. Set a goal to become the fittest version of yourself in the next 6 months. If you want to write more, don't aim for just a few pages. Decide you're going to write an entire book. Make the goal big enough to excite you, then break it down into small, daily actions. And here's the real secret. Once you set a 10x goal, your daily habits automatically start to shift. You start looking for ways to optimize your time, remove distractions, and step into the version of yourself that's capable of achieving it. Takeaway: big, ambitious goals don't burn you out. Boring ones do. The no plan B mindset: why burning the boats creates success. If you want to succeed, stop giving yourself an escape route. Sounds extreme? Maybe. But history and psychology shows that when you leave yourself no option but to move forward, you actually do. The safety net problem. Why backup plans make you more likely to quit. We've all done it. Signed up for something just to try it out, but secretly told ourselves that if it doesn't work, it's fine. I have a backup plan. And guess what happens? The moment things get hard, we use that backup plan. In psychology, this is called the loss aversion effect. Our brains are wired to avoid losses more than they are to seek gains. That means if we have a comfortable plan B, we unconsciously hold back from going all in on plan A because, well, why risk failure when there's a safe way out? Here's a funny and painful personal example. In high school, I joined the soccer team, except, just in case I wasn't any good, I also signed up for the debate club. My logic? If I sucked at soccer, at least I'd have an intellectual backup plan. What happened? I half-heartedly played soccer, never improved, and convinced myself I just wasn't good at sports. Then I quit. Why? Because I had an easy way out. The people who succeed don't give themselves that option. They make the decision before they start that they're going to push through, no matter what. The power of no return. Why burning the boats works. The phrase burning the boats comes from a legendary story about Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conquistador. When he and his men arrived in the New World, they were vastly outnumbered. Cortés's response? He ordered his men to burn their ships. No escape, no retreat. The only option? Victory. Picture it. The year is 1519. Cortés and his 600 men land on the shores of Mexico, facing thousands of Aztec warriors. His men, exhausted from the voyage, are already questioning if this was a bad idea. After all, retreat is still an option, right? Wrong. Cortez gathers his soldiers, points toward the ships, and gives an order that sounds absolutely insane. Burn them. At first, the men think he's joking. Then they see the flames. Their only way home, their safety net, is turning to ash. Panic sets in, but then something shifts. If there's no way back, there's only one way forward. With nothing left to lose, the men fight like their lives depend on it, because they do. And against all odds, they win. It wasn't just strategy, it was psychology. The moment retreat was no longer an option, their commitment became absolute. They fought harder, thought smarter, and refused to give up. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying you should burn your literal belongings unless minimalism is your thing. But the principle is powerful. When retreat isn't an option, your mind stops looking for exits and starts looking for solutions. You find ways to make things work because failure isn't a choice. Why committing 100% feels better than half committing? Have you ever noticed that half committing to something is actually more stressful than just going all in? When you're half in, you constantly second-guess yourself. You wonder if you should keep going, if it's worth it, if you should just quit. That mental debate drains your energy more than just fully committing would. It's like standing on the edge of a cold pool, dipping your toe in, debating whether you should jump. The longer you hesitate, the worse it feels. But the second you dive in, the shock is over and you're fully in it. That's what happens when you burn your boats. How to apply this to your own life. So how do you burn the boats in your own life without arson charges? Announce your goal publicly. When other people know what you're committing to, it makes it harder to back out. Remove safety nets. If you're serious about your business, don't keep a backup plan that lets you quit easily. Set up consequences for quitting. Tell a friend that if you give up on your goal, you'll pay them $100. Losing money hurts more than the pain of pushing through. Surround yourself with people who don't accept your excuses. A supportive but tough community keeps you accountable. The scaling system. How to keep expanding your momentum. Success is never about one big moment. It's about stacking small wins over time. Wins that multiply, gaining momentum until they become unstoppable. Most people assume that transformation happens overnight, but real, lasting change follows the habit growth curve. Small, consistent actions that compound into massive results. The trick isn't to push yourself to extremes. It's to gradually level up in a way that feels almost effortless. One of the best illustrations of this is the penny doubling trick. If you were given a choice between receiving $1 million in cash today or a single penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days, which would you choose? Most people would take the million. But here's the shocker. That tiny penny, doubling daily, turns into over $5.3 million by day 30. Small actions, when compounded, lead to exponential results. The same principle applies to your habits and momentum. What starts small grows into something life-changing, as long as you keep going. Think about fitness. If you do just one push-up a day, it seems insignificant. But if every week you add one more push-up, by the end of the year, you'll be doing 52 push-ups daily, without ever having made a drastic change. The process works because it feels easy. You don't force progress. You let progress build itself. Yet most people give up before they reach this compounding effect. Why? Because the early stages feel unimpressive. You don't see massive results in the first few weeks, so it's easy to assume it's not working. But just like with the penny trick, all the magic happens in the later stages, when your small wins have stacked up enough to create real momentum. So how do you scale your momentum without burning out? First, you focus on incremental expansion. Instead of pushing yourself to impossible extremes, you simply increase your effort by 1% each time. If you're reading for 3 minutes a day, bump it up to 4. If you're journaling 1 sentence, make it 2. The key is to never make the increase so large that it feels overwhelming. The moment something feels like a burden, you're setting yourself up to quit. This is why New Year's resolutions fail. People go from doing nothing to setting insane expectations overnight. The person who never goes to the gym suddenly tries to work out 6 days a week. The person who never wakes up early suddenly aims for 5 a.m. mornings. It's too much too fast, but if they had simply scaled gradually, their brain wouldn't fight them. They would have built momentum naturally, instead of relying on willpower. Consider professional athletes. They don't train at their max intensity every single day. Instead, they increase volume, strength, and endurance slowly in cycles. If Olympians don't go from 0 to 100 overnight, why do we expect ourselves to? To make this work in real life, you need to set up a next-level challenge for yourself. Take any habit you've started and increase it just slightly. If you're writing 1 page a day, make it 1.1 pages. If you're meditating for 3 minutes, try 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Your brain won't resist small increases, but over time, those small increases will add up to something huge. Takeaway: massive success isn't a one-time event. It's built through small wins, stacked relentlessly. Your Chapter 3, Momentum Exercises. Take a moment, grab a notebook, or open a fresh document. These exercises will turn theory into action. The goal? Make sure momentum isn't just something you read about. It's something you experience. 1. The halfway barrier breakthrough. Have you ever abandoned a goal right when it started getting difficult? Think back to a time when you quit something. What was happening in your mind? What excuses did you make? What emotions came up? Now, reframe it. Imagine you're back in that situation, but instead of quitting, you push through. How do things play out differently? What benefits do you gain by sticking with it? Write this out as a short, alternate reality story. 2. The 10x goal activation. If your goal right now feels safe, you're probably underestimating yourself. What would happen if you multiplied your goal by 10? Instead of, I want to save $1,000 this year, make it $10,000. Instead of writing a blog post, plan a book. Instead of running a 5K, train for a marathon. Write down your current goal. Now multiply it by 10. What's your gut reaction? Fear? Excitement? Doubt? Good. That means it's big enough. Now brainstorm 3 ways you could actually make this goal happen. No limits. Get creative. 3. Burn the boats challenge. Pick one area of your life where you've been keeping a safety net. Maybe you have a business idea but haven't committed because you still have a backup plan. Maybe you want to get in shape but haven't invested in a trainer or program because you'll try it on your own first. Now, burn the boat. What's one concrete action you can take right now to eliminate your escape route? Announce your goal publicly? Cancel the backup plan? Invest money into it so you're financially committed? Do it. 4. The scaling habit experiment. Pick a small habit you're working on. Maybe it's writing, exercising, meditating, or reading. Whatever it is, take what you're doing now and scale it up by just 1%. Instead of 5 push-ups, do 6. Instead of reading 3 minutes, go for 4. Try this for a week. Then do it again. Over a month, watch how these tiny increases add up to something huge. 5. The I'm already that person shift. Most people fail because they still see themselves as the old version of who they were. Stop. Right now, write a description of your future self, the one who has already mastered momentum. How do they think? What habits do they have? How do they handle setbacks? Then, do something today that aligns with this identity. Maybe it's making a confident decision, waking up early, or sticking to a commitment when you'd normally quit. Act like the person you're becoming. Momentum in action. Your job isn't to try these exercises, it's to do them. Right now. If you're serious about transformation, don't just read this book, use it. Chapter 4. The Commitment Code. How to Stay Consistent for Life. Why willpower always fails. Let's talk about willpower, the magical force everyone wishes they had unlimited access to. The thing we blame when we eat an entire pizza instead of a salad, when we skip a workout, when we hit snooze for the 12th time. I just need more willpower, we tell ourselves. Wrong. Willpower is like a smartphone battery. It starts at 100% in the morning, but every decision you make drains it. By noon, you're already running on 40%. By the evening, you're in low power mode, desperately searching for a charger, which unfortunately doesn't exist for self-control. The truth is, even the most disciplined people don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems that make good decisions automatic. The science of decision fatigue and why it's destroying your progress. Ever stood in front of a menu with too many choices and suddenly felt exhausted? That's decision fatigue in action. The more decisions you make, the harder each one becomes. Your brain hates making too many choices, and by the end of the day, it just wants to take the easiest path. This is why you might eat healthy all day and then cave into junk food at night. Your willpower isn't weak, it's just overused. Studies show that the average person makes over 35,000 decisions per day. Each one, whether it's choosing what to wear, what to eat, or whether to exercise, drains your mental energy. And once you're depleted, your brain defaults to autopilot habits. If your default habit is Netflix and snacks instead of writing that book, guess what wins? How high performers beat willpower burnout. Successful people don't waste willpower on decisions that don't matter. Instead, they remove unnecessary choices. Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day: black turtleneck, jeans, sneakers. Why? One less decision to make. Athletes meal prep their food so they don't have to debate healthy versus unhealthy at every meal. Writers set up distraction-free zones so they don't have to decide whether or not to focus. It's not about having superhuman discipline. It's about setting up your life so discipline isn't required. The no decision rule, making consistency automatic. Instead of relying on willpower, set pre-made rules for yourself. The fewer decisions, the better. Instead of, should I work out today? I work out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Instead of, what should I eat? I always have a healthy breakfast prepped. Instead of, should I write today? I write for 10 minutes after my morning coffee. No debate. Every time you make a decision ahead of time, you conserve mental energy for the things that truly matter. Case study: how top performers remove choices to stay consistent. A 2012 study on parole board judges found that prisoners who appeared early in the day were more likely to be granted parole than those who appeared later. Why? Decision fatigue. By the afternoon, the judges' brains were tired of making choices, so they defaulted to the safest option, saying no. This is exactly what happens in our daily lives. When you're exhausted from too many decisions, you default to the easiest, most comfortable option. Want to be more consistent? Reduce the number of decisions in your life. Make important choices ahead of time. Set up systems that make quitting harder than following through. Final push: 1 week willpower experiment. Let's put this into action. For the next week, try eliminating just one unnecessary decision. Maybe you set a rule that you wear the same work outfit every Monday, or you decide once a week what you'll eat for lunch instead of choosing daily. Track how much mental energy you save. You might be shocked. Takeaway: willpower isn't the problem. Too many decisions are. The fewer choices you have to make, the easier consistency becomes. The 5-minute rule: destroying resistance. Let's get real. Starting is always the hardest part. Not finishing, not even staying consistent. Just getting yourself to begin. It's the reason you'll stare at your running shoes for 20 minutes instead of putting them on. It's why you'll scroll through Netflix for an hour instead of pressing play on an actual show. The brain hates initiation energy. It wants to keep you in a state of inaction for as long as possible. This is where the 5-minute rule comes in. It's the cheat code for outsmarting your own brain. Why getting started feels so hard, and how to trick yourself into action. Here's a harsh truth. You don't actually have a motivation problem. You have an activation problem. The hardest part of any habit isn't doing it. It's just beginning. Studies show that once we start a task, we're far more likely to complete it due to a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect. Our brains hate unfinished business. The trick is making that initial step so small that your brain can't resist. Enter the 5-minute rule. If something feels overwhelming, commit to just 5 minutes of it. That's it. Not an hour, not 30 minutes, just 5. Why does this work? Because 5 minutes isn't threatening. It's small enough that your brain doesn't activate resistance. And here's the real magic. Once you start, you usually keep going. 5 minutes of stretching turns into a full workout. 5 minutes of writing becomes an entire page. You trick yourself into momentum. The just dip your toes method. A funny but true story. Ever tried to convince yourself to jump into a freezing cold pool? You stand on the edge, hyping yourself up, but instead of jumping, you just keep staring at the water like it personally offended you. Eventually, you tell yourself, I'll just dip my toes in. And the next thing you know, you're fully in the pool, swimming like it's no big deal. That's exactly how the 5-minute rule works. You don't force yourself to jump in. You just tell yourself you'll start. And once you start, your resistance disappears. How high achievers use this rule to beat procrastination. Successful people don't have more discipline than you. They just have better tricks to get started. Writers don't want to write. They sit down and commit to just a few sentences, knowing momentum will take over. Athletes don't always feel like training. They tell themselves they'll warm up for 5 minutes, and before they know it, they're mid-workout. A 2016 study on productivity found that people who focused only on starting small were 80% more likely to stick with a habit than those who aimed for a huge, overwhelming goal right away. How to apply the 5-minute rule today. Pick something you've been avoiding. A workout? A work project? Cleaning your kitchen? Now set a timer for 5 minutes and start. Want to read more? Read for 5 minutes. Need to declutter? Clean for 5 minutes. Avoiding a workout? Stretch for 5 minutes. If you want to stop after 5 minutes, fine. But 90% of the time, you won't. Takeaway. Starting is where all progress begins. If you can master the art of just beginning, success is inevitable. The accountability effect. How to make quitting impossible. Here's a weird fact about humans. We're terrible at keeping promises to ourselves, but we hate letting other people down. This is why you'll happily skip the gym if you're going alone, but will show up even when you don't feel like it, if you promised a friend you'd meet them there. Our social wiring makes accountability one of the most powerful tools for consistency. Think about it. When's the last time you flaked on an important meeting because you weren't in the mood? Probably never. But how many times have you skipped something for yourself because you just didn't feel like it? That's exactly why accountability works. It removes choice from the equation. Why we're more likely to keep commitments to others than to ourselves. Psychologists call this the social commitment effect. When our actions are observed by others, we feel a strong urge to follow through. In a study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology, researchers found that people who made public commitments to their goals were more than twice as likely to achieve them compared to those who kept their goals private. Why? Because failing publicly feels worse than quitting privately. How to set up foolproof accountability structures. If you struggle with consistency, you don't need more discipline. You need a system that makes quitting painful. Here are 3 ways to do it. 1. Public accountability. Announce your goal to someone you respect. Better yet, tell multiple people. Saying, "I'll wake up at 6 a.m. to write" in your own head is easy to ignore. Posting it in a group chat? Not so much. 2. Financial accountability. Bet money on yourself. Use an app like StickK, where you have to pay if you don't follow through. Losing money is psychologically more painful than failing a habit. 3. Failure consequences. Create a consequence that makes quitting way worse than following through. Example, if you don't go to the gym, you have to Venmo $20 to someone who annoys you. Suddenly, working out is the better option. Case study. The entrepreneur who stuck to a fitness habit because of a fail fee. A friend of mine, Matt, struggled for years to stay consistent with working out. He had the gym membership, the fancy workout clothes, even the high-tech water bottle, but none of it got him to actually show up. So he made a simple bet. For every workout he skipped, he had to send $50 to his younger brother, who, by the way, loved reminding him when he missed a session. Guess what? Matt started showing up. It wasn't because he suddenly became more disciplined. It's because he hated losing money and hated admitting failure to his little brother even more. Make your own "quitting is not an option" plan. Here's what you need to do right now. 1. Pick a habit you want to be consistent with. 2. Choose an accountability system. Public commitment, financial stakes, or consequences. 3. Tell someone about it immediately. Bonus points if they'll hold you to it. Takeaway. If you make quitting more painful than following through, you'll always stay consistent. The never miss twice strategy. Here's the brutal truth. Missing 1 day of your habit isn't a problem. Missing 2 days in a row? That's where things start falling apart. Habits don't break in one moment of failure. They break when that failure turns into a pattern. Think about it. You miss one workout? No big deal. Life happens. But miss 2 in a row and suddenly you're off track. You tell yourself, "Well, I already missed twice. What's one more day? And before you know it, you're right back where you started, convincing yourself you'll start fresh next Monday. The secret to long-term consistency? Never miss twice. Why perfectionism destroys progress. Most people think the key to success is never messing up. Wrong. The key to success is knowing how to recover when you inevitably do. Perfectionists fall into the all-or-nothing trap. If they can't do something perfectly, they don't do it at all. This is why they quit at the first slip-up. They think, I was doing so well, but now I messed up, so what's the point? The point is, missing once doesn't erase your progress. Quitting does. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, says it best. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. Your brain starts looking for patterns, so the faster you course correct, the easier it is to stay on track. The habit resilience rule. How to bounce back immediately. Instead of aiming for perfect consistency, aim for resilient consistency. The difference. Perfectionist mindset. I missed my habit today. I've failed. Might as well stop. Resilient mindset. I missed today, but I'll show up tomorrow and get back on track. Here's the simple rule. If you miss a habit once, make the next day non-negotiable. No debate, no excuses. Just show up, even if it's for 30 seconds. If you normally do a 30-minute workout and you don't have time, do one push-up. If you usually meditate for 10 minutes, do 10 seconds instead. The goal is not breaking the streak twice. Real-life example, the guy who got fit with the never miss twice rule. I once knew a guy, Jake, who lost over 80 pounds, not because he was some ultra-disciplined machine, but because he never let 2 bad days happen in a row. Jake had one rule. If he skipped a workout, he had to at least show up to the gym the next day, even if it was just to stretch for 5 minutes. Some days, he'd walk in, stretch, and leave. But most days? Once he was there, he ended up working out anyway. Fast forward a year, and Jake was in the best shape of his life. Why? Because he focused on not letting a bad day turn into a bad week. How to apply this rule in your own life? Try this. 1. Pick a habit you're working on. 2. Commit to the rule. If you miss one day, make the next one non-negotiable. 3. Have a bare minimum version of the habit. If your full habit feels too hard, what's the smallest possible version you could do? 5 push-ups? 1 sentence of writing? Anything is better than nothing. 4. Track your habits. When you visually see your streak, it's easier to avoid missing twice. 5. Forgive yourself quickly. One mistake doesn't define you. Getting back on track does. Why this works. The psychological advantage. Studies show that people who focus on habit recovery rather than habit perfection are 60% more likely to stay consistent long-term. By eliminating the pressure to be flawless, you remove the guilt that often causes people to quit. Takeaway. Success isn't about never failing. It's about never letting failure repeat itself. Activation exercises. Making consistency automatic. Now that you've unlocked the commitment code, it's time to take action. These exercises are designed to help you stay consistent, remove excuses, and make quitting nearly impossible. Don't just read this. Do it. The Willpower Drain Tracker. For the next 2 days, pay attention to every time you feel mentally exhausted from making a decision. Write down what time of day your energy dips the most, what decisions drained you the most, e.g., what to eat, when to work out, what task to do first, what unnecessary choices could be eliminated. After tracking, set one pre-made rule to remove daily decision fatigue. Example, I always meal prep on Sundays, or I write for 10 minutes before checking social media. The 5-minute momentum challenge. Pick a habit you've been struggling with. Now, commit to doing just 5 minutes of it for the next 7 days. Want to start working out? Just stretch for 5 minutes. Need to write more? Write a single paragraph. Trying to meditate? Close your eyes for 5 minutes. The trick is starting. Once you begin, momentum will handle the rest. The unbreakable accountability contract. Find someone to hold you accountable. Now, write out a simple agreement. State your habit. I will exercise for 15 minutes every morning. Set a consequence for failure. If I skip 2 days, I send my friend $20. Have them check in, daily or weekly. This works because humans hate breaking commitments to others. The never miss twice rule in action. Print this out or write it somewhere visible. 1 day off is okay. 2 is the start of a new bad habit. The next time you miss a habit, your only job is to show up the next day. If you usually run for 30 minutes and you're tired, run for 5. If you write daily but miss a day, write 1 sentence tomorrow. The goal isn't perfect streaks, it's avoiding 2 failures in a row. The future you letter. Write a letter to yourself 3 months in the future as if you've already succeeded. How does your life feel now that you've built consistency? What was the biggest struggle you overcame? What advice would you give to your past self? Seal it, set a reminder to read it in 90 days, and keep going until you prove yourself right. Takeaway: consistency isn't about motivation. It's about removing excuses and making follow-through automatic. Pick an exercise. Start today. Your future self will thank you. Chapter 5. Scaling up. Taking your progress to the next level. How to increase your growth rate without overwhelm. The biggest mistake people make when trying to improve is going from 0 to 100 overnight. You see it every January. People who haven't exercised in years suddenly commit to 2-hour gym sessions, daily green smoothies, and waking up at 5 a.m. Within 2 weeks, most of them are back on the couch, binge-watching Netflix, and pretending they never made those resolutions in the first place. Why? Because they tried to scale up too fast, overwhelming themselves into failure. The key to sustainable growth isn't massive change, it's gradual scaling. If you want to level up your habits without burning out, you need to master small, strategic expansions. The stretch zone formula, finding the sweet spot between comfort and burnout. Imagine you're playing a video game. You start at level 1, facing easy challenges that help you get familiar with the game mechanics. After a while, the challenges increase, but in a way that feels manageable. Now imagine skipping straight to level 20. Suddenly, enemies are attacking you from all directions. You don't know what half the controls do, and within minutes, you get crushed. That's exactly what happens when people try to scale up their habits too quickly. The stretch zone formula is all about pushing yourself just enough to grow, but not so much that you crash. There are 3 zones. Comfort zone, too easy. You stay in familiar territory, repeating the same actions. No progress happens here. Stretch zone, just right. This is where growth happens. The challenge is slightly beyond your current abilities, but still achievable. Panic zone, too hard. The challenge is so overwhelming that it leads to stress, avoidance, or quitting. The goal is to stay in the stretch zone, where tasks feel challenging but not crushing. If you're currently reading 1 page a day, don't jump to an entire book overnight. Stretch to 3 pages. If you're running for 5 minutes, increase to 7 minutes before pushing for 20. The 80-20 habit expansion rule, doubling down on what works. Not all habits are created equal. Some small actions drive massive results, while others barely make a dent. This is known as the 80-20 rule. 80% of your progress comes from just 20% of your actions. Think about it. If you're learning a new skill, 20% of your study techniques likely produce 80% of your improvement. If you're trying to lose weight, 20% of your habits, like meal prepping, might be responsible for most of your success. If you're building a side business, 20% of your tasks might generate 80% of your income. The key to scaling up without overwhelm is identifying which habits are driving the most results, then doubling down on them. Instead of adding more habits, refine and optimize what's already working. From 5-minute walks to a marathon. Take Dave, an office worker who used to be completely sedentary. One day, he decided to start walking for just 5 minutes a day. It felt easy, so he stuck with it. A few weeks later, he stretched it to 10 minutes. Eventually, he started jogging. Within a year, he had completed his first marathon. At no point did Dave force himself into sudden, unrealistic changes. He stayed in the stretch zone, gradually increasing his effort in a way that felt natural. Instead of quitting from overwhelm, he built sustainable progress. Scaling your progress should feel like a natural evolution, not a forced sprint. The key is to stay in the stretch zone, double down on the 20% of habits that work, and expand gradually. If you push too fast, you'll crash. If you stay comfortable, you'll stagnate. But if you scale with strategy, you'll unlock levels of growth you never imagined possible. The plateau problem: how to push through when progress slows. At some point, no matter how well things are going, progress slows down. The excitement you felt in the beginning? Gone. The rapid improvements? Stalled. You're doing everything right, but suddenly results are nowhere to be found. This is the plateau problem, and it's where most people give up. Why does this happen? Because progress is never linear. We expect steady upward growth, but in reality, improvement looks more like a staircase, long periods of seemingly no progress followed by sudden jumps. The key to pushing through is understanding why plateaus happen and how to break past them. Why plateaus happen. The brain's adaptation mechanism. Your brain loves efficiency. Once it recognizes a pattern, it stops working as hard. That's why your first week of running feels like torture, but after a month, it's just normal. Your body adapts, your mind adjusts, and suddenly, what once felt like a challenge now feels like maintenance. This adaptation is great for survival, but terrible for progress. When your brain stops seeing something as new, it stops prioritizing improvement. That's why weight loss stalls, skill development slows, and workouts that once made you sweat barely make you breathe hard. Your brain is saving energy, assuming you're done improving, unless you shake things up. The surprise disruption hack, shocking your system back into progress. The fastest way to break a plateau? Introduce an unexpected disruption. Think about a workout routine. If you do the same exercises, same reps, and same intensity every week, eventually your body stops responding. But the second you add weight, increase speed, or switch movements, boom, you're sore again. Your body is forced to adapt. This works for any habit or skill. Writing. Stuck in a creative rut? Switch to a different genre. Write in a new environment. Or set a crazy time constraint, like write 500 words in 10 minutes. Productivity. Feeling unmotivated at work? Try the Pomodoro technique. Switch your location or change your work hours. Learning. If a new skill isn't clicking, change your approach. Watch videos instead of reading, explain it to someone else, or tackle it from a different angle. Your brain thrives on novelty. Small tweaks force it to re-engage and restart progress. If you feel stuck, disrupt the routine. The tracking trap. When measuring progress helps and when it hurts. Tracking progress is powerful until it isn't. While seeing improvements motivates you, obsessing over numbers can do the opposite. Take weight loss, for example. If you check the scale daily, you'll see fluctuations that have nothing to do with fat loss, water retention, hormones, food intake. If you don't see instant progress, you might get discouraged and quit, even if you're actually making progress. Instead of checking your results daily, shift to a weekly or monthly review. Long-term trends matter more than short-term fluctuations. If you're tracking, fitness. Measure progress every 2 to 4 weeks, not daily. Writing. Focus on total words written per month, not per day. Learning. Reflect on overall improvements, not just one study session. The key is to measure what matters without obsessing over daily fluctuations. Track trends, not temporary results. The entrepreneur who broke through a business plateau. Meet Sarah. She started an online store selling handmade candles, and in her first year, business exploded. Sales kept doubling, until suddenly, they didn't. Growth flatlined. She tried everything. More ads, more products, more promotions. Nothing worked. Her progress was stuck. Instead of quitting, she decided to analyze what was actually driving her success. She realized 80% of her revenue came from just 20% of her products. Instead of adding new products, she doubled down on her bestsellers. Within 6 months, sales skyrocketed. Her business didn't need more. It needed focus. The lesson? When progress stalls, don't just work harder. Work smarter. Identify the one change that could make the biggest impact. Final thought. Plateaus aren't the end. They're the setup for your next level. Hitting a plateau doesn't mean you failed. It means you're ready for an upgrade. The people who succeed, they don't quit at the plateau. They disrupt, refocus, and adjust. The power of reflection, tracking and adjusting your progress. Most people assume that progress comes from working harder. But what if real progress comes from pausing and reflecting? If you never stop to assess what's working and what isn't, you risk spending months or years making the same mistakes. Reflection isn't about looking back. It's about moving forward smarter. The check-in method, how self-reflection supercharges growth. Imagine trying to drive to a new city without checking your GPS. Sure, you might eventually get there, but you'd probably take a few wrong turns, waste time, and end up frustrated. That's exactly what happens when you try to improve without reflection. The check-in method is simple. Once a week, Take 5 minutes to answer these 3 questions. 1. What's working? What actions have been giving you the best results? 2. What's not working? What's slowing you down or causing frustration? 3. What will I adjust? What small tweak can I make to improve next week? Most people don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they keep repeating ineffective actions. Taking just 5 minutes to reflect can save you weeks of wasted energy. The weekly progress snapshot: how a simple review keeps you on track. If you've ever felt like you're making no progress, it's probably because you're not looking at the bigger picture. Progress is often invisible when you're in the middle of it. That's why tracking long-term trends is more important than obsessing over daily results. Here's how to do a weekly progress snapshot. Pick one key metric to track. If you're working on fitness, it might be workouts completed. If you're writing, it could be words written. Compare this week to last week. Are you improving, staying the same, or falling behind? Identify patterns. If you had a bad week, was it because of distractions, lack of sleep, or another factor? Tracking trends, not perfection, keeps you motivated. Even if your progress feels slow, seeing long-term improvement proves you're moving forward. How to avoid self-sabotage: the success blind spot. Here's a weird psychological trick. The more progress you make, the easier it is to self-sabotage. Why? Because success tricks your brain into thinking, I've got this handled. And then you get complacent. Ever lost weight, felt great, then started eating junk again? Or built a solid habit only to reward yourself by skipping it? That's the success blind spot. To avoid this, act like a scientist, not an emotional roller coaster. Instead of thinking, I'm doing great, I don't need to track anymore, keep reviewing your progress even when things are going well. That's how top athletes, CEOs, and high achievers keep improving. They never stop analyzing and adjusting. The Olympic athlete's reflection ritual. Elite athletes don't just train, they review everything. A study of Olympic gold medalists found that the top performers weren't necessarily the ones who trained hardest. They were the ones who tracked their training, identified small improvements, and adjusted constantly. One swimmer, for example, wasn't improving his speed. Instead of training harder, he reviewed his technique videos and realized his breathing pattern was slightly off. Fixing that tiny detail shaved seconds off his time. Lesson: small adjustments, massive results. The 3-minute habit check-in, your simple self-review process. Want to make reflection effortless? Use this 3-minute habit check-in at the end of every week. 1. Write one win. What's one thing you're proud of this week? 2. Write one challenge. What slowed you down? 3. Write one tweak. What small adjustment will you try next week? By keeping it simple and quick, you make reflection a habit instead of a chore. Success isn't about grinding endlessly. It's about improving strategically. The people who achieve long-term success aren't the ones who push hardest. They're the ones who reflect, adjust, and move forward smarter. Building your personal growth system, making improvement automatic. The difference between people who constantly improve and those who remain stuck isn't talent, intelligence, or even motivation. It's systems. A system ensures that growth isn't something you force. It's something that happens automatically. Imagine if brushing your teeth required a daily motivational speech. You'd probably have cavities the size of golf balls. But because it's part of your routine, you do it effortlessly. That's what a personal growth system does. It removes the need for willpower and makes progress inevitable. Why you need a system, not more motivation. Relying on motivation is like depending on good weather to go for a run, unpredictable and inconsistent. A system, on the other hand, is like owning a treadmill. Even if it rains, you still show up. Consider 2 people who want to read more. 1. Person A said, I'll read whenever I have free time. 2. Person B said, I read for 10 minutes after my morning coffee every day. Who's more likely to succeed? Person B, because they've automated the behavior. The habit loop: how to make good habits stick forever. The brain loves patterns. When an action becomes part of a loop, it sticks. The habit loop follows a 3-step process. 1. Cue, a trigger that reminds you to act. 2. Routine, the behavior itself. 3. Reward, a small benefit that reinforces the habit. For example, cue, you wake up. Routine, you meditate for 3 minutes. Reward, you feel calmer and more focused. Over time, your brain starts craving the reward, which locks the habit into place. how to design your personal growth system. Now, let's build your system. Ask yourself, what do I want to improve? Fitness, productivity, learning. What's my daily cue? Morning coffee, lunch break, bedtime routine. How can I make it easy? A short workout, reading one page, journaling for 2 minutes? What's my reward? A checklist, a moment of celebration, a tiny treat? For example, if you want to exercise daily, cue, put workout clothes next to your bed. Routine, do 10 push-ups after waking up. Reward, check it off your habit tracker. Simple systems lead to massive results. How to keep your system evolving so you don't outgrow it. Ever notice how successful people never stop improving? That's because their systems evolve as they grow. Your system should feel challenging but doable. If it starts feeling too easy, tweak it. If you're writing 100 words a day, bump it to 150. If you're meditating for 3 minutes, try 5. The key is small upgrades that keep momentum alive. The 1% rule, how tiny daily improvements lead to huge success. For over a century, British cycling was a complete disaster. Their track record was so embarrassing that even bike manufacturers refused to sell them equipment, fearing it would ruin their reputation. No British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France, and their Olympic performances were nothing short of forgettable. The world had written them off. Then, in 2003, Dave Brailsford was hired as the new performance director. He wasn't interested in sweeping overhauls or dramatic transformations. Instead, he introduced a simple but revolutionary idea, the theory of marginal gains, making just a 1% improvement in everything. Instead of trying to turn his cyclists into overnight champions, Brailsford and his team focused on tiny, seemingly insignificant changes that would add up over time. They redesigned bike seats for better posture and comfort, ensuring that riders could maintain their endurance longer. They experimented with different types of massage gels to optimize muscle recovery. Every detail was scrutinized. No improvement was too small. Brailsford's obsession with incremental gains didn't stop there. He had his cyclists bring their own pillows and mattresses to competitions to improve sleep quality, recognizing that even a slightly better night's rest could give them an edge. He tested biofeedback sensors to see how different training regimens affected performance, allowing for personalized adjustments. Even the way riders washed their hands was optimized, an effort to prevent minor illnesses from disrupting training. Each of these improvements alone was minuscule, but together, they created an unstoppable force. Within 5 years, the results were staggering. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team dominated the competition, winning 60% of the available gold medals. 4 years later, at the 2012 London Olympics, they repeated their success, setting world records and taking home even more gold. And then came the moment that had once seemed impossible. In 2012, Sir Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to ever win the Tour de France. Over the next 5 years, British riders went on to win 5 of the next 6 Tour de France titles. From irrelevance to complete domination, all thanks to small, consistent improvements. Why this works, and how you can apply it to your life. The power of the 1% rule isn't just for athletes. It's the foundation of sustainable success in any field. Most people fail at change because they aim too high, too fast. They go from never exercising to trying to run a marathon. They commit to reading a book a week when they haven't picked up a novel in years. They push for rapid transformation, get overwhelmed, and quit. But real change doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in tiny, daily improvements. If you improve by just 1% every day, you might not see a difference at first. But over a year, those tiny compounding gains make you 37 times better than when you started. That's how small wins snowball into massive results. Here's how you can start applying it in your own life. If you want to improve your fitness, don't aim for an hour at the gym. Start with 10 push-ups. The next day, do 11. If you want to read more, don't commit to a book a week. Just read 1 page a day. Small, manageable actions create long-term success. The best part? These small improvements stack up effortlessly. Once something becomes part of your daily routine, it no longer feels like an effort. It feels automatic. Just like British cycling transformed itself with micro improvements, you can apply the same principle to any area of your life. People don't fail because they're lazy or unmotivated. They fail because they rely on willpower instead of systems. If you build a system where improvement happens automatically, success is no longer a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Activation exercises, making progress, a system. You've learned how tiny daily improvements lead to massive success. But knowledge alone won't create change. It's time to take action and build your personal growth system. These exercises will help you apply the 1% rule, track your improvements, and create a system where progress happens effortlessly. The 1% Improvement Challenge. Small gains, big impact. Right now, think of one area where you want to improve. Fitness, productivity, learning, creativity, or even relationships. Now, instead of aiming for massive change, commit to improving by just 1% every day. Take out a notebook or open your Notes app and answer these. What's one area of your life you want to improve? What's one tiny action you can take today that is 1% better than yesterday? Examples: 1 extra push-up, 1 extra page of reading, 5 minutes of focused work. How will you track it? A simple check mark on a habit tracker, a quick journal entry, or just a mental note. Challenge: track your 1% improvement for the next 7 days. Write down your small progress daily and notice how your brain starts craving improvement. The Upgrade Your System reflection. Success isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. Just like British cycling fine-tuned every detail, you need to look at your life and find small ways to optimize it. Grab a piece of paper and answer these. What's something you do daily that could be optimized slightly? Examples: preparing your outfit the night before, setting a water bottle next to your desk to drink more, scheduling workouts in advance. What's one small tweak you can make to your environment to remove friction? Examples: leaving a book by your bedside to read more, setting up a to-do list the night before to start your day smoothly. How can you make your system foolproof so it runs without needing motivation? Example: if you want to eat healthier, prepping meals in advance so you don't have to decide what to eat. Make one adjustment today and track how much easier it makes your routine. The Tiny Habits Tracker. Great athletes, musicians, and entrepreneurs don't leave progress to chance. They track it. If something isn't measured, it's easy to ignore or forget. For the next week, choose one habit you want to improve and track it daily. Here's your simple habit tracker setup. What habit are you focusing on? What's the bare minimum version of this habit you can commit to every day? Example: if you're writing, commit to just 1 sentence. If you're working out, commit to 1 push-up. How will you track it? Use a journal, a calendar, or even a simple sticky note. Each day, write down your progress. By the end of the week, look at how these small improvements have stacked up. The Success by Default plan. If something is hard to do, you won't do it consistently. If something is automatic, you'll keep doing it without thinking. Your goal is to make good habits so easy that skipping them feels unnatural. Look at your current habits and answer these questions. What's one habit you already do daily that you can attach a new habit to? Example: if you make coffee every morning, use that as a cue to read 1 page of a book. What's one way to make your desired habit easier? Example: if you want to work out in the morning, put your workout clothes next to your bed. What's one small reward you can give yourself after completing the habit? Example: a check mark on your tracker, a cup of tea, or a 5-minute break. Design your Success by Default plan today and test it for the next 3 days. The How Would British Cycling Improve This exercise. Let's apply marginal gains thinking to your life. Look at your current daily routine and pretend you're a high-performance coach optimizing an Olympic team. Ask yourself, if I wanted to improve my daily habits by just 1%, what's the smallest thing I could tweak? How can I improve my sleep by just 1%? Better pillow, earlier bedtime, phone away from bed. How can I improve my productivity by just 1%? Shutting off notifications, setting a timer for focused work. How can I improve my workouts by just 1%? Adding a short warm-up, stretching after. How can I improve my mindset by just 1%? Writing down one thing I'm grateful for. Reading one motivational quote. Pick one small improvement and implement it today. Repeat this for 1 week and watch how these tiny gains start adding up. Part 2. The 30-Day Momentum Loop Challenge. What you've accomplished so far. In the first part of this book, you didn't just read about change. You completely redefined how change actually happens. Most people try to change their lives through sheer willpower, setting massive goals and hoping motivation will carry them through. But now you know the truth. Lasting change isn't about motivation, it's about momentum. Through 5 powerful chapters, you've built the foundation for a transformation that doesn't just last for 30 days, it lasts a lifetime. You discovered why big goals set you up for failure and how tiny 3-minute habits are the secret to effortless progress. You learned how your identity controls your actions and how to shift into the kind of person who follows through. You rewired your approach to commitment and consistency, ensuring you never rely on willpower again. You mastered the momentum loop, turning tiny wins into unstoppable progress. You built a system for scaling your habits without burnout, using the 1% rule that turned British cycling into world champions. By now, you've fundamentally changed the way you see personal growth. You understand that success isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter, smaller, and more consistently. Taking action for the next 30 days. Now it's time to apply everything you've learned. Welcome to Part 2, the 30-Day Momentum Loop Challenge, where you'll take small daily actions that rewire your brain, your habits, and your identity for good. No more waiting. No more overthinking. Just 3 minutes a day, building momentum that will transform your life one simple action at a time. Let's begin. Week 1. Laying the groundwork. Your first micro wins. The first week is all about creating tiny, effortless wins that build confidence and momentum. Let's start with the first step, establishing a micro-win mindset. Day 1 to 3, the micro-win mindset, celebrating small progress. If you've ever set a big, ambitious goal, you probably know the feeling of starting strong, full of motivation, only to hit a wall a few days later. Maybe you've told yourself you were going to start running every morning, quit sugar entirely, or finally get through that mountain of unread books. But somehow, despite your best intentions, life gets in the way. One missed day turns into 2, then 3, and before you know it, you're right back where you started, frustrated, disappointed, and convinced that change just isn't for you. But here's the truth. You didn't fail because you weren't motivated enough. You failed because the goal was too big to sustain from the start. And that's not your fault. It's how the brain works. The real secret to lasting change isn't about setting massive goals and pushing yourself to exhaustion. It's about starting so small that your brain doesn't even realize it's making an effort. That's the power of a micro win. It's the tiny, almost ridiculous actions that seem like they won't make a difference until they do. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's just a small clump of snow, nothing impressive. But as it keeps rolling, more snow sticks to it, and suddenly, that tiny snowball is an unstoppable force. That's exactly how habits work. Small actions lead to momentum, and momentum leads to big results. And the best part? It doesn't require motivation. It just requires showing up. Why small wins create big progress? The reason micro wins are so effective is that they trigger something called a dopamine response in the brain. Dopamine is often referred to as the feel-good chemical, but more importantly, it's also the motivation chemical. Every time you accomplish something, even something tiny, your brain releases dopamine, which makes you feel good and encourage you to keep going. Let's say you decide to do 1 push-up today, just 1. It seems ridiculous, right? What difference is 1 push-up going to make? But the moment you do it, your brain registers a win. That little hit of dopamine makes you feel good about taking action, and suddenly 1 push-up turns into 2, 2 turns into 5, 5 turns into 10. And before you know it, you're doing a full workout without even forcing yourself. The key to success isn't forcing yourself to do more. It's making it so easy to win that your brain starts craving it. The mistake everyone makes when trying to change. Most people approach change in all or nothing mode. They decide that if they're going to start exercising, they need to work out for an hour a day. If they're going to eat healthy, they need to cut out all junk food immediately. If they're going to write a book, they need to sit down and crank out 2,000 words a day. And that works for about a week. Then reality kicks in. You're tired, busy, or just not in the mood. The habit feels overwhelming, and so you skip 1 day, then another. Then you give up completely. And worst of all, you feel like a failure. But what if, instead of trying to change everything overnight, you focused on tiny, effortless wins that felt almost too easy to fail? What if success wasn't measured by how much you did, but simply by showing up? Your first 3-minute action: make it too easy to fail. For the next 3 days, your only goal is to win small. Pick one habit, just one that you'd like to build. But instead of making it a huge, daunting task, shrink it down to something so small that it feels ridiculous. If you want to start exercising, do one push-up. If you want to read more, read one paragraph. If you want to journal, write one sentence. If you want to meditate, breathe deeply for 30 seconds. That's it. No extra effort. No, I should be doing more. Just one tiny action. And here's the magic. Once you start, you'll often end up doing more anyway. You'll do one push-up, then maybe 2. You'll read one paragraph, and suddenly you're finishing a whole page. But even if you don't, you still win, because you showed up. And showing up is all that matters right now. Why this works, even if it feels too easy. This might sound too simple to be effective, but science backs it up. Studies on habit formation show that the hardest part of any action is simply starting. Once you take that first small step, your brain naturally wants to keep going. But when the task feels overwhelming, your brain shuts down before you even begin. This is why the biggest barrier to change isn't effort, it's inertia. Once you get moving, it's easy to keep going. That's why these micro wins matter. They create motion, and motion builds momentum. Think of it like trying to push a heavy cart. If the cart is sitting still, it takes a lot of force to get it moving. But once it's rolling, it barely takes any effort to keep it going. Your habits work the same way. Right now, we're just getting the cart moving. Real-life example: how one sentence turned into a bestseller. A few years ago, a writer named Anthony decided he wanted to write a book. But every time he sat down to write, he felt overwhelmed. He kept telling himself he needed to write at least 1,000 words a day, but he could never stay consistent. So, instead of trying to force himself into massive writing sessions, he made a ridiculously small rule. He had to write one sentence per day. Just one. At first, it felt silly. What difference was one sentence going to make? But here's what happened. Once he wrote one sentence, it was easy to write another. Some days he stopped after one, but most days he kept going. And day by day, sentence by sentence, he finished his entire book. That book went on to sell over 100,000 copies, and it all started with one sentence a day. That's the power of micro wins. They feel small, but they create real progress. Your challenge for the next 3 days. For the next 3 days, pick one habit you want to start. Then shrink it down to something so small that it feels impossible to fail. If you think, this is too easy, you're doing it right. The only rule? Show up. Do your tiny action, celebrate the win, and move on with your day. At the end of 3 days, you'll notice something strange. You'll actually start craving these wins. You'll feel excited to do them, and that tiny action will no longer feel like nothing. It'll feel like progress. Because it is. Week 2, breaking through mental barriers. Identity upgrade. The second week is where things start to shift from just taking small actions to actually becoming the person who follows through. By now, you've built up a series of small wins, and you've seen firsthand how tiny efforts add up. But this is the point where most people start to struggle. Not because the actions are difficult, but because their old identity fights back. It's like your brain is standing there with its arms crossed, saying, wait a minute, we don't do this. We've always been the kind of person who gives up after a few days. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't change the way you see yourself, your brain will always pull you back to your old habits, no matter how hard you try. This week is all about breaking that cycle. We're going to shift your identity so that being consistent is no longer something you try to do. It's just who you are. And once you see yourself as someone who follows through, everything changes. Day 8-9, the failure flip. Turning setbacks into stepping stones. Everyone fails at some point. The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is simple. Successful people don't see failure as the end. They see it as feedback. Most people treat failure like a red light. It stops them in their tracks. They mess up once, and they convince themselves they're doomed. But what if, instead of seeing failure as proof that you're not good enough, you saw it as proof that you're learning? Think about babies learning to walk. They don't take one step, fall down, and say, well, I guess walking isn't for me. They fall dozens, even hundreds of times, but they keep getting back up. Because failure isn't a sign that they can't do it. It's part of the process of learning how to do it. Your challenge for the next 2 days: reframe a past failure as a lesson. Write down something you've failed at before. Now, instead of focusing on what went wrong, answer this question: what did this experience teach me that I wouldn't have learned otherwise? The goal is to see that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a step toward it. Day 10 to 11, the Identity Accelerator, becoming the person who never quits. By now, you've seen that small wins create momentum. But for real, lasting change, you need to upgrade your identity. Because here's the truth: your actions will always follow your beliefs about yourself. If you believe deep down that you're someone who struggles with consistency, you'll always find a way to prove yourself right. You'll start strong, but you'll subconsciously sabotage your progress because it doesn't match your self-image. But when you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, you'll start acting like it, automatically. Here's a quick test. If I asked you, are you a runner? How would you answer? If you've run before but don't see yourself as a runner, you'd probably hesitate. But someone who runs regularly doesn't question it. They just say, yeah, I run. The goal this week is to shift your self-image so that instead of saying, I'm trying to be more consistent, you say, I'm the kind of person who follows through. Your challenge: complete this sentence: I am becoming the kind of person who hook. Fill in the blank with the habit you're building. Write it down, say it out loud, and remind yourself of it daily. Day 12 to 14, acting like your future self, before you feel ready. The fastest way to change your identity? Start acting like future you right now. Not next month, not when you've earned it. Right now. Imagine the version of you who has already mastered this habit. How does that person think? How do they handle setbacks? How do they structure their day? If you were already the kind of person who never skipped workouts, what would you do today? If you were already a highly productive person, how would you handle the next hour? Instead of waiting to become that person someday, start stepping into that identity right now. For the next 3 days, your challenge is to spend 24 hours acting like your future you. If your future you wakes up early, set an alarm and get up right away. If your future you doesn't procrastinate, tackle your hardest task first. If your future you eats healthy, make food choices from that mindset. You don't have to do it perfectly. But every time you act like future you reinforce that identity. And the more you reinforce it, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you wake up and realize it's not just something you're trying to do. It's who you are. This is how real transformation happens, not by waiting for some magical moment, but by choosing to show up as the person you want to be every single day. Week 3, building unstoppable momentum. You've made it to week 3. By now, you've built small wins and started shifting your identity into the kind of person who follows through. But here's the problem most people face around this time. They slow down. The initial excitement fades, and the new habits start feeling a little boring. This is where most people quit. But not you. Because this week, we're shifting into momentum mode. This is when small changes start to compound into massive results. This is when habits begin to feel automatic. This is where you go from I'm trying to this is just what I do. Your goal this week: keep stacking wins, no matter how small. If week 2 was about breaking through mental barriers, week 3 is about removing the friction that slows you down. Let's go. Day 15 to 17, the compounding effect, how small actions lead to big changes. Most people underestimate the power of small, repeated actions. They assume success is about one big breakthrough moment. But in reality, success is a series of tiny, consistent actions stacking up over time. Think of it like a bank account. If you save a tiny amount every day, it doesn't feel like much. But over time, thanks to compound interest, that small investment grows exponentially. Your habits work the same way. Let's say you commit to writing just 100 words a day. That's barely more than a tweet. But in a month, you'll have written 3,000 words. In a year, 36,500 words, half a book. And if you did 200 words instead, that's a full book in a year. The secret to long-term success isn't going hard for a few weeks and then quitting. It's about making tiny, easy changes that build over time. No effort is wasted. Your challenge for the next 3 days. Track your progress. Find one area where you've been consistent, even in the smallest way, and calculate how it will compound over time. Whether it's pages read, steps walked, workouts completed, or money saved, see the long-term power of your small efforts. The more you see the progress stacking up, the more motivated you'll be to keep going. Day 18 to 21, the habit multiplier, stacking new habits on existing ones. Have you ever noticed how brushing your teeth triggers other behaviors? Maybe after brushing, you floss. Maybe after flossing, you rinse with mouthwash. One habit naturally leads to another. This is called habit stacking, and it's one of the easiest ways to build momentum without extra effort. Instead of trying to force new habits into your life, you simply attach them to ones you already do. This removes friction and makes consistency effortless. Example, if you want to start stretching daily, attach it to your morning coffee. Stretch while the coffee brews. If you want to practice gratitude, attach it to brushing your teeth. Say one thing you're grateful for every time you brush. If you want to read more, attach it to eating lunch. Read one page before you start eating. Your challenge: pick one new habit and stack it onto an existing habit. Keep it simple. The goal is to create automatic triggers so that your new habit doesn't require willpower. It just happens. By the end of this week, these small stacks will feel like second nature, and that's when things really take off. Week 4. Locking in lasting change. You've made it to the final week. By now, you've built small wins, overcome mental resistance, and started compounding your progress. But this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They assume they're done. They think, I've got momentum, I'll just keep going. But without a strategy to lock in these habits, old patterns can creep back in. This is why some people work hard to lose weight, then gain it all back. Or build a productivity routine, only to fall into old procrastination habits months later. The secret to permanent change isn't more motivation. It's making your new habits effortless and impossible to ignore. This week, we're going to future-proof your success. By the end of these 7 days, your habits won't just be something you try to do. They'll be who you are. Day 22 to 24. Automatic progress. Making change effortless. Have you ever noticed how some people always exercise, eat healthy, or stay organized without thinking about it? It's not because they have better willpower. It's because they've built automatic systems that make success inevitable. Think about it. When was the last time you debated whether to brush your teeth? Probably never. It's automatic. That's how your new habits should feel. The trick? Eliminate the need for decision-making. The more choices you have to make, the more likely you are to get tired and take the easy way out. So, instead of relying on willpower, build systems that make following through the default option. Here's how. Remove friction. If you want to work out, set out your clothes the night before. If you want to read more, place your book on your pillow. Make failure harder than success. If you struggle with distractions, delete social media apps during work hours or set app time limits. Use reminders. Set an alarm for your habit. Visual cues, like a checklist or habit tracker, help reinforce consistency. Your challenge: pick one habit and make it automatic. Reduce friction, create reminders, or set up an accountability system that removes the need for willpower. Day 25 to 27. The accountability loop. Staying consistent after 30 days. If you've ever stuck to a habit only when you had a challenge or an accountability partner, you know how powerful social pressure can be. When we make commitments in our heads, they're easy to break. But when we commit out loud, quitting feels like letting someone down. This is why the best performers, CEOs, athletes, artists, use external accountability. Some have coaches, others have mastermind groups. Some make public declarations of their goals. Why? Because the moment someone else is watching, follow-through becomes non-negotiable. Your challenge: find your accountability system. Tell a friend your goal. Ask them to check in on your progress. Join a group. Whether it's a fitness class, an online challenge, or a book club, surround yourself with people who reinforce your new habits. Set up failure consequences. Make quitting more painful than following through. Example: if you don't stick to your habit, you owe a friend $50. The key is to make consistency feel natural so that your new habits are part of your lifestyle, not just a temporary project. Day 28 to 30, beyond 30 days, turning short-term gains into lifelong transformation. By now, you've built momentum, identity shifts, and automatic habits. But here's the truth. 30 days is just the beginning. If you stop now, there's a risk of slipping back into old habits. But if you keep going, you'll reinforce your new identity permanently. Think of this like learning to drive. At first, you had to focus on everything, checking mirrors, signaling, watching the road. Now, you drive without thinking about it. Your habits work the same way. Your final challenge: decide your next step. Which habits will you continue building? How will you keep challenging yourself? What's your next big growth goal? The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to keep showing up. Keep stacking small wins. Keep reinforcing your identity. Keep building the life you want, one simple habit at a time. Because the truth is, you're not just changing habits, you're changing who you are. Final step: move to part 3, tools and strategies for lifelong success. Now that you've completed the 30-day challenge, it's time to future-proof your progress. In part 3, we'll cover advanced strategies to maintain and expand your success for years to come. Let's go. Part 3, tools and strategies for lifelong success. Introduction: what you've accomplished and what comes next. You did it. You completed the 30-day momentum loop challenge, and now you stand at a crossroads. You've seen what happens when you commit to small daily actions. You've felt the shift from trying to change to actually becoming the person who follows through. You've fought off self-doubt, worked through resistance, and built habits that no longer require motivation to sustain. But here's the reality. Momentum doesn't last unless you keep feeding it. And this is where most people go wrong. A lot of people think that once they complete a program like this, they're set for life. They assume their habits will just stick forever like superglue. But then something happens. They take a vacation, life gets stressful, or they simply lose focus. Slowly but surely, their old habits creep back in. And before they know it, they're right back where they started, wondering what went wrong. That's why this section of the book exists. We're not here to maintain progress. We're here to expand it. In part 3, you'll learn how to lock in your transformation so it becomes unshakable. You'll move beyond just thinking in terms of daily habits and start designing a long-term system for continuous improvement. Think of this as the operating system upgrade for your entire life, not just a quick fix app you installed temporarily. So far, you've learned how to create momentum, shift your identity, and make small wins automatic. Now, we're taking it to the next level. This is where you learn how to prevent setbacks, adapt your habits to changing circumstances, and make sure your success compounds year after year. What you've built in part 2. Think about everything you've done over the past month. You started with tiny, seemingly insignificant actions, but those small wins added up. At first, it might have felt like nothing was happening. But then, you hit the tipping point. Your habits started to feel natural, maybe even effortless. Here's what you've accomplished. You learned that motivation isn't the key. Momentum is. You shifted your identity from someone who tries to someone who follows through. You found ways to beat midway slumps, self-doubt, and plateaus. You made your habits so easy and automatic that skipping them started to feel weird. You realized that tiny wins stack up into massive changes. At this point, the question isn't, how do I keep this going? The real question is, how do I use this as a launchpad for something even bigger? What we're doing in part 3. Part 3 is about moving from habit building to life mastery. We're zooming out from just daily actions and looking at the bigger picture of who you're becoming. Here's how. Step 1. Locking in your progress and avoiding backslides. Progress doesn't vanish overnight, but it can fade if you don't protect it. You'll learn exactly why people self-sabotage after success and how to stop it before it happens. You'll also get a powerful emergency reset tool that helps you recover instantly if you ever feel yourself slipping. And because short-term motivation isn't enough, we're going to zoom out to the 10-year perspective, a strategy that will make sure you stay inspired and driven for the long haul, not just for a few months. Step 2. Expanding your identity beyond just habits. Habits are powerful, but they're not the end goal. The real game changer is who you become because of them. In this section, you'll learn how to craft your future you blueprint, a step-by-step method to design your next-level identity. You'll also discover the power of success anchors, daily rituals that make it nearly impossible to fall back into old patterns. And because progress isn't just about achieving things, it's also about enjoying the journey. You'll learn a simple 5-minute mental shift that boosts long-term fulfillment instantly. Step 3, applying the momentum loop to every area of life. You didn't come this far just to master a few habits. Now it's time to expand this transformation into your career, relationships, and personal growth. You'll see exactly how to apply the momentum loop method to level up in every aspect of your life. And here's where it gets exciting. Once you master the momentum loop for yourself, you can use it to lead and inspire others. Whether it's your family, your team, or your community, you'll learn how to share this system in a way that multiplies your impact. Finally, you'll create a lifelong master plan, a clear strategy to ensure that the growth you've started today continues for years to come without burning out. Why this part of the book matters. The 30-day challenge was not the finish line. It was the launch pad. The real challenge isn't starting. It's keeping the momentum alive forever. This section will make sure that your hard-earned progress doesn't just stick, but keeps compounding into something even greater. Because this isn't just about habits anymore. It's about who you're becoming. So let's get to it. Your future self is waiting. Chapter 6, the no backslide plan. So you've built a solid foundation of habits, and everything feels great. You're consistent, you're seeing results, and for the first time, you're actually enjoying the process. But then out of nowhere, it happens. You miss a day, then another, and before you know it, you're off track. A week goes by, and suddenly, the habit that felt automatic now feels like a chore. You tell yourself, I'll get back to it tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into never. If this sounds familiar, congratulations, you're human. Backsliding isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're normal. The real problem isn't missing a day or two. It's not having a plan to bounce back when it happens. This chapter is all about stopping the slide before it turns into a full-blown relapse. Because here's the truth. Success isn't about never falling off track. It's about getting back on track fast. Why we self-sabotage and how to stop it before you eat an entire pizza at 11 p.m. Ever wondered why, when things are going great, you suddenly decide to mess it all up? You're eating healthy, feeling amazing, and then, one random night, you find yourself halfway through an entire pizza, convincing yourself that it doesn't count if you don't look at the calories. Or you're crushing your morning routine, waking up early, feeling productive, then suddenly, you hit snooze once, then twice. Then suddenly, you're back to sleeping in and scrolling TikTok first thing in the morning. This isn't just random. There's a reason your brain sabotages its own progress. It's trying to keep you in your comfort zone. For years, your brain was wired for one way of living. Even though you've built better habits, there's a part of you that still identifies with the old version of yourself. And when you get too far outside your comfort zone, your brain panics and tries to pull you back. That's why you need fail-proof systems in place, so that even when your brain tries to self-sabotage, you don't fall completely off track. And that's exactly what we're going to build next. The emergency reset. Tool. How to recover fast after a slip-up. Let's get one thing straight. Missing a day isn't failure. Missing 2 days isn't failure. Even missing a week doesn't mean you're doomed. The real failure? Letting guilt and frustration keep you stuck. Most people, after breaking a habit streak, go into full self-destruction mode. They think, well, I've already messed up, might as well make it worth it. One missed workout turns into a month off. One skipped writing session turns into abandoning the project. One extra slice of cake turns into an entire weekend of bad eating. Why? Because when people stumble, they don't have a plan to reset quickly. Instead, they let one mistake spiral into a complete breakdown. That's where the emergency reset tool comes in. This simple 3-step process will get you back on track instantly, before your brain can talk you into quitting. Step 1, shrink the habit. Most people make the mistake of trying to catch up after a slip-up. They miss a workout, so they plan a brutal 2-hour session to make up for it. They skip a day of writing, so they commit to 10,000 words in one sitting. And what happens? They feel overwhelmed and end up doing nothing. Instead of trying to catch up, do the opposite. Make the habit smaller. If you missed your usual 30-minute workout, just do 5 minutes. If you skipped journaling, just write 1 sentence. If you skipped reading, just read 1 paragraph. Why does this work? Because getting back into action is more important than making up for lost time. You're rebuilding the habit, not punishing yourself for missing it. Step 2, recommit out loud. When you break a habit, your brain starts questioning whether you were ever really committed. It starts whispering, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you'll just fail again. That's why you need to override that voice immediately. Right now, say out loud or write down a simple commitment. I'm back on track. This is just a reset, not a failure. I missed a day, but I'm not missing 2. I'm still the kind of person who follows through. It sounds ridiculous, but it works. Studies show that when we make verbal commitments, even just to ourselves, we're far more likely to follow through. It shifts our identity back to someone who takes action. Step 3, make the next action non-negotiable. The biggest mistake people make after slipping up? They overthink the comeback. They wait for the perfect moment to start again. They try to get motivated, but momentum doesn't come from waiting. It comes from action. So instead of debating when to restart, do something right now, even if it's tiny. Do 1 push-up, read 1 sentence, write 1 paragraph. Take any action that moves you forward. This step works because it stops the all-or-nothing mindset in its tracks. Instead of thinking, I've already failed, so why bother? You train yourself to say, 1 mistake doesn't define me. I always bounce back. Why most people stay stuck and how to escape the I'll start over on Monday trap. Ever noticed how I'll start again on Monday is the most dangerous sentence in self-improvement? It's the procrastinator's favorite excuse. We convince ourselves that we need a perfect fresh start to get back on track, but perfection is a trap. Monday isn't magic. The first of the month isn't magic. Right now is the only time that matters. The longer you wait to restart, the harder it gets. That's why top performers don't wait for the right time to get back on track. They course correct instantly. If you've ever told yourself, I'll start again on Monday, flip it around. Ask yourself, why not start now? What's stopping me from doing the tiniest version of my habit today? What if I only commit to 30 seconds? Because small actions now are always better than perfect plans later. The 10-year perspective, how to stay motivated for the long run. One of the biggest reasons people quit after making progress is short-term thinking. They focus so much on daily habits that they forget the bigger picture. If you're struggling to stay consistent, zoom out. Ask yourself, where do I want to be in 10 years? What kind of person do I want to become? If I stayed consistent for the next decade, what would my life look like? When you shift to a long-term mindset, missing a day no longer feels like a big deal. You realize that 1 workout, 1 journaling session, or 1 day of healthy eating is just a tiny part of a much bigger journey. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. But the people who keep going, even when it's boring, even when they don't feel like it, even when they miss a few days, those are the ones who transform their lives. So, if you're ever feeling discouraged, just ask yourself, what would future me want me to do today? Your future self isn't waiting for you to be perfect. They're just hoping you keep going. How to bulletproof your progress, so you never have to start over again. At this point, you've probably realized something important. Progress isn't about avoiding failure. It's about making failure irrelevant. The most successful people in any field don't have more motivation than you. They just have better systems that make staying on track the default rather than the exception. So, instead of hoping you'll stay consistent, let's design your life in a way that makes consistency automatic. Step 1. Design an environment that makes success inevitable. Here's a harsh truth. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. If you constantly rely on motivation to make good choices, you're already losing the battle. The easiest way to make habits stick is to make them the most convenient choice. Let's say you want to eat healthier. You could try to resist junk food with sheer willpower every single day, or you could just not keep junk food in the house. If it's not there, You don't have to fight the temptation. The same goes for any habit. Want to read more? Leave a book on your pillow. Want to work out? Put your gym clothes next to your bed. Want to cut back on social media? Delete the apps from your phone. If something is easy to do, you'll do it. If something is hard to do, you won't. It's that simple. So instead of relying on self-control, ask yourself, how can I make my good habits easier to follow than my bad ones? The easier you make the right choices, the more consistent you'll be, without even thinking about it. Step 2, set up automatic checkpoints so you can't drift off track. Most people only realize they've fallen off track weeks or months later, when it's already too late. That's why you need built-in checkpoints that catch small slip-ups before they turn into full-blown setbacks. Try this. Every Sunday, do a habit audit. Take 5 minutes to ask yourself, did I stick to my core habits this week? If not, where did I fall off? What can I do to make next week easier? By regularly checking in, you never go too far off track. A small adjustment today is easier than a massive reset months from now. And if you really want to stay accountable, find a habit buddy, someone who checks in on you and calls you out when you start slipping. It could be a friend, a coach, or even a simple habit tracking app that reminds you to stay on course. Step 3, create a no debate rule for your non-negotiable habits. Ever noticed how the more you debate whether to do something, the less likely you are to do it? You wake up and think, should I work out today? That tiny moment of hesitation? It's enough for your brain to talk you out of it. That's why the most successful people remove the option to negotiate with themselves. Instead of should I work out today, the answer is I work out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. No debate. Instead of do I feel like writing today, the answer is I write for 10 minutes every morning, whether I feel like it or not. When something is a non-negotiable, you don't waste mental energy deciding. You just do it. So pick your top 3 habits and make them non-negotiable. The ones that, no matter what, get done. Not because you're motivated, but because that's just who you are now. Step 4, develop a minimum effort version of every habit. Here's a mindset shift that will change your life. Doing something is always better than doing nothing. Most people fall off track because they think if they can't do the full habit, it's not worth doing at all. They set the bar so high that any disruption, travel, sickness, stress, throws them off completely. But the best way to stay consistent? Have a bare minimum version of every habit. If you normally work out for 45 minutes, but you're exhausted, just stretch for 5 minutes. If you usually journal a full page but feel unmotivated, just write 1 sentence. If you typically meditate for 10 minutes but don't have time, take 5 deep breaths. The habit still gets done. The identity stays intact. Momentum stays alive. And guess what? 90% of the time, once you start, you'll do more than the minimum anyway. But even if you don't, you didn't break the streak. Step 5, treat your future self like a friend. Imagine your best friend was about to give up on something important. Would you say, yeah, you suck, just quit? Of course not. You'd encourage them, remind them why they started, and push them forward. Yet, when we struggle, we're often our own worst critics. Instead of supporting ourselves, we judge, criticize, and give up. But what if you treated your future self the way you'd treat your best friend? Every decision you make today affects future you. Every time you show up, follow through, and push forward, even in small ways, you're helping them. So, next time you feel like quitting, ask yourself, what would future me want me to do right now? 9 times out of 10, the answer is simple. Keep going. Final thought. Progress is a lifestyle, not a phase. Most people treat self-improvement like a temporary project. They get excited, make progress, and then go back to their old ways. But that's not what you're doing. You're not here to just try change. You're here to become the person who never stops growing. This chapter wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about learning how to keep momentum alive, even when life gets messy. Because that's what separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck. They don't just build habits, they build an identity that never lets them quit. And now, so have you. Chapter 7, The Future You, Living at the Next Level, Why Your Future Self Matters. Let's start with a confession. I used to have the worst habit of ignoring my future self. Not in a whatever happens, happens way, but in a very specific way that made my life unnecessarily difficult. See, in my early 20s, I had this annoying belief that future me was basically Superman. Future me would wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run, despite the fact that present me had just eaten an entire pizza at midnight. Future me would definitely finish that important project tomorrow, so present me could totally binge watch TV all night. Future me would somehow have boundless energy, perfect discipline, and unlimited motivation, all while present me procrastinated, snacked, and made reckless decisions. And guess what? Future me was not amused, because every time he arrived, which was literally every single tomorrow, he had to deal with the mess that present me left behind. Sleep deprived, unprepared, scrambling to catch up, wondering why past versions of me were such idiots. One day, this all hit me like a truck. I had a college paper due at 8 a.m. Now, was I the kind of person who started writing assignments early? Absolutely not. Past me had assured me, dude, don't worry, future you is going to be so productive tomorrow. So there I was. It was 2 a.m. I had 0 words written, a blank document, a rapidly approaching deadline, and a full-scale panic attack brewing. I wanted to travel back in time and punch past me in the face. I wanted to demand answers. Why did you do this to us? Why did you believe in me so much? I am not as responsible as you think I am. And that's when it hit me. Future me was just present me, but later. He wasn't some ultra-disciplined, high-energy version of myself. He was exactly the same guy, except with less time and more stress. And from that day on, I made one decision that changed everything. I stopped screwing over future me. The science of identity evolution, how small actions shape future you. The truth is, we're always shaping who we become, whether we realize it or not. Every decision we make, no matter how small, is a vote for the type of person we're becoming. If you work out today, you're casting a vote to become a fit person. If you write one sentence, you're casting a vote to become a writer. If you scroll TikTok for 3 hours, well, you get the idea. Now, here's where things get interesting. Research in behavioral psychology shows that our brains love identity consistency. Once we see ourselves in a certain way, we start acting in ways that confirm that identity. That's why people who run every day don't force themselves to run anymore. They just see themselves as runners. That's why successful people don't push themselves to wake up early. They just identify as people who wake up early. Your habits don't just change what you do. They change how you see yourself. And once your brain believes in your identity shift, consistency becomes automatic. The future you perspective, how high achievers think differently. Here's a mindset shift that separates successful people from everyone else. Most people think about what they want now. High achievers think about what future them will thank them for. Regular people make decisions based on what feels good in the moment. I don't feel like working out, so I'll skip it. I'm tired, so I'll hit snooze. I deserve a break, so I'll procrastinate today. But the top 1%? They train themselves to act in service of their future self. I'm tired, but future me will feel amazing if I finish this workout. I want to scroll my phone, but future me will thank me for getting 8 hours of sleep. I don't feel like writing, but future me will be thrilled to have a finished book. This is how elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and high performers think. They prioritize future them over present comfort. And once you start doing this, everything changes. You stop making decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You start making decisions based on who you want to become. Because at the end of the day, future you is coming whether you like it or not. The only question is, who will they be when they get here? Designing your future identity, becoming the person you want to be. Now that we've established that future you isn't a superhero, just a slightly older version of present you, it's time to stop leaving your identity to chance. Instead of hoping you'll naturally become more disciplined, focused, or successful, let's design future you on purpose. Here's the cold, hard truth. Who you are today is just a collection of past decisions. Every habit you have, every belief you hold, every strength or weakness you possess, it didn't just happen. It was shaped by choices you made over time. Which means, if you want to become someone new, you don't have to wait. You can start acting like that person today. The reverse engineering method, working backward from future you. Most people make the mistake of thinking that identity change happens after success. They believe, once I get fit, I'll feel like an athlete. Once I make money, I'll think like an entrepreneur. Once I finish writing, I'll feel like an author. But that's backwards. Identity comes first, results come second. If you start acting like future you today, the success follows naturally. So here's how we're going to do it. Step 1, define future you. In detail. Let's get specific. If you could fast forward 1 year and look at the best possible version of yourself, what would that person be like? Take a second and really picture them. How do they think? How do they act? What habits do they follow effortlessly? What do they avoid because it no longer fits their identity? Write this down. Not just, I want to be successful, that's too vague. Instead, define the details. Example, future me is someone who exercises every morning, wakes up feeling energized, and makes smart choices without hesitation. They stay calm under pressure, never procrastinate, and always follow through. They don't waste time scrolling, they protect their energy, and they take bold action. This is your blueprint. The more specific, the better. Step 2, act like future you today, even before you feel ready. Once you've defined your future self, it's time to borrow their habits now. Ask yourself, if I were already that person, what would I do today? Would they skip workouts? No. Would they snooze their alarm? No. Would they overthink small decisions? No. So you don't either. This is one of the most underrated success hacks. You don't fake it till you make it. You become it till it's real. If you want to be fit, start acting like a fit person now, even if you're just at the beginning. If you want to be confident, start moving and speaking like a confident person, even if you don't fully feel it yet. If you want to be productive, start running your day like a productive person, even if you used to procrastinate. The more you act like future you today, the faster your brain accepts it as truth. The if I were already that person hack, trick your brain into an identity upgrade. Here's a fun trick. Next time you feel stuck, ask yourself one simple question. If I were already the type of person who never quits, what would I do right now? This removes all the mental debate. No more, should I? Shouldn't I? Instead, you instantly step into the right action. This is how high performers operate. They don't hope to feel motivated. They just ask, what would a leader do? What would a top athlete do? What would a successful entrepreneur do? Then they act accordingly. And over time, they actually become that person. How future you handles problems differently. One of the biggest benefits of identity change is that your problems stop feeling like obstacles. Think about this. If you see yourself as a procrastinator, every task feels like a struggle. But if you see yourself as a high performer, challenges feel normal. If you see yourself as someone who always follows through, failure doesn't make you quit. It makes you adjust. Here's an example. Let's say 2 people are trying to wake up early, but they both hit snooze one morning. Person A thinks, ugh, I'm so bad at mornings. I knew I wouldn't keep this up. They give up. Person B thinks, that was a slip up. No big deal. I'm still the kind of person who wakes up early. They try again tomorrow. Guess who succeeds in the long run? Person B, because their identity isn't tied to perfection. The key takeaway? When you shift your identity, obstacles don't make you question yourself. They just become part of the process. Takeaway. Final thought. You're already becoming future you. Make sure it's the right one. The power of success anchors. How to reinforce your new identity. Designing future you is exciting. You've mapped out the habits, mindset, and behaviors of the person you're becoming. But here's the truth. If you don't anchor that identity into your daily life, it will fade. Success isn't a one-time decision. It's a system. Think about this. If you don't tie down a boat, what happens? It drifts. Not all at once, but slowly, bit by bit, until one day you look up and realize it's completely lost. Your new habits and identity work the same way. If you don't anchor them into your routine, they'll drift back into old patterns, not because you're lazy, but because that's just how the brain works. So, how do you make sure that doesn't happen? You create success anchors. What are success anchors, and why you need them? A success anchor is a small, repeatable ritual that reinforces your identity. It's like tying your boat to the dock. It keeps you from drifting. Here's the secret. It's not about doing something huge. It's about doing something consistent. Because when you do something consistently, it stops being a task and starts being who you are. Example, if you want to be the kind of person who always exercises, You don't need to run 10 miles every day. But if you always put on your workout clothes at 7 a.m., guess what? That tiny action reinforces the habit. It's like a switch in your brain. Once you anchor a behavior, it becomes automatic. How to create your own success anchors. Let's make this real. Follow these 3 steps to create powerful success anchors that lock in your new identity. Step 1. Pick the identity you want to reinforce. What's the habit or mindset you want to solidify? Do you want to be a fit person? A focused and productive person? A calm, stress-free person? Choose one core identity shift that matters most to you. Step 2. Attach it to an existing routine. The easiest way to make something stick? Attach it to something you already do. Your brain already has strong habits that happen without thinking. You brush your teeth every morning. You make coffee. You check your phone. Let's be real. Now, you're going to attach a new success anchor to one of these existing habits. For example, after I make coffee, I write down my top 3 goals for the day. Before I brush my teeth at night, I stretch for 5 minutes. After I sit down at my desk, I do 30 seconds of deep breathing. The habit itself isn't as important as the act of reinforcing it daily. Step 3. Keep it stupidly simple. Most people overcomplicate habit formation. They think a real routine needs to be big, dramatic, and life-changing. Nope. The best success anchors are so simple, you can do them even on your worst days. If it takes more than 2 minutes, shrink it. Want to be a writer? Write 1 sentence after your morning coffee. Want to be a meditator? Take 3 deep breaths before starting your car. Want to be healthier? Drink 1 glass of water before breakfast. It's not about the size of the action. It's about the repetition of the action. Once a behavior is anchored, it grows naturally, just like a tree that starts from a small seed. Real-life examples of success anchors in action. The morning ritual of a billionaire. You know what most successful people have in common? They don't wing it every day. Take Oprah Winfrey. Every morning before checking emails or diving into work, she spends 20 minutes practicing mindfulness. Not because she has time for it, but because she made it a success anchor. It's non-negotiable. It keeps her centered, focused, and locked into the identity she's built. Does she ever feel like skipping it? Probably. But does she do it anyway? Yes, because it's automatic. The small habit that helped a man lose 100 pounds. A friend of mine wanted to lose weight, but he hated working out. So instead of forcing himself into an intense program, he created one simple success anchor. Every morning, he put on his running shoes, no matter what. At first, he didn't even go for a run. He just put them on, sat there, and went about his day. But guess what? After a few weeks, it felt weird not to go outside. Eventually, he started walking, then jogging, then running. A year later, he had lost 100 pounds. Not because he made a massive change, because he locked in a tiny identity shift and let momentum do the rest. How to make sure your success anchors stick. Want to know why most people fail at building habits? They rely on motivation instead of systems. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you have it, some days you don't. But success anchors don't need motivation. To make sure your anchors stick, follow these 3 golden rules. 1. Never skip twice. If you miss a day, don't miss 2. Momentum is built through consistency. 2. Make it effortless. If your anchor feels hard, make it smaller. The easier it is, the more likely you'll keep doing it. 3. Stack your wins. Once your first anchor is solid, add another. Start small, build strong. The goal is to create a system where growth happens automatically. Takeaway: you don't have to try. If you've already decided, the 5-minute gratitude boost, a shortcut to long-term fulfillment. You've probably heard a million times that gratitude is important, that it makes you happier, improves relationships, and lowers stress. Blah, blah, blah. But let's be honest, when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, or frustrated that your progress isn't moving fast enough, the last thing you feel like doing is being grateful. Instead, your brain fixates on what's still missing. You're getting healthier, but you're not there yet. Your business is growing, but not as fast as you want. You've built better habits, but you still struggle some days. It's human nature. The brain loves moving the goalpost, making us chase the next achievement without ever stopping to appreciate how far we've come. This is why so many successful people feel empty. They grind for years, hit their goals, and then feel nothing. They just move on to the next thing, never feeling fully satisfied. And that's why gratitude isn't just nice, it's the missing piece that makes success actually feel good. Why high achievers struggle with gratitude, and how it holds them back. Here's a weird paradox. The more ambitious you are, the harder it is to feel satisfied. Ever notice that when you finally reach a goal, the excitement wears off fast? You achieve something you worked for, but within days, sometimes even hours, you're already thinking, what's next? This is called the arrival fallacy. Your brain falsely believes that once you hit a goal, you'll finally feel happy and fulfilled. But once you get there, the feeling doesn't last. So you chase the next goal and the next. Successful people get trapped in this endless cycle of achievement without fulfillment. They feel like they're always chasing, never arriving. And that's exactly why you need to build gratitude into your daily routine. Not just as a feel-good practice, but as a high-performance tool that makes success deeply rewarding. The science behind gratitude and long-term motivation. Gratitude isn't just some fluffy spiritual concept. It's backed by hard neuroscience. Studies show that people who practice daily gratitude experience higher motivation. They feel more inspired to take action, even on tough days. Better resilience. They recover from setbacks faster and don't spiral into self-doubt. Stronger focus. They are less distracted by negativity and stay locked in on their goals. Why does this happen? Because gratitude literally rewires your brain. Research from Dr. Robert Emmons, one of the leading experts on gratitude psychology, shows that regularly practicing gratitude trains your brain to focus on progress instead of problems. And when you focus on progress, you feel unstoppable. The 5-minute daily gratitude ritual. How to hardwire success and fulfillment. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't have time to write long gratitude lists. I don't want to force myself to feel grateful. I already appreciate my life. Why do I need to write it down? Fair. But the power of gratitude isn't just thinking nice thoughts occasionally. It's about training your brain to recognize wins every single day. And the fastest way to do that? A 5-minute gratitude ritual. Here's how it works. Step 1. Identify one win. No matter how small, every morning or evening, ask yourself, what is one thing I'm proud of today? It doesn't have to be huge. It could be, I resisted hitting snooze and got up on time. I drank more water today instead of reaching for soda. I stayed calm in a situation that normally would have frustrated me. This shifts your brain from, I haven't done enough, to, I'm making progress. Step 2, find one thing you're grateful for in your journey. Most people only feel grateful after success, but to stay motivated, you need to appreciate the process, not just the outcome. So ask yourself, what's something I'm grateful for in my journey right now? Examples. I'm grateful that I have the ability to grow and improve. I'm grateful for the challenge because it's shaping me into a better person. I'm grateful that even though I'm not there yet, I'm further than I was before. This reminds you that progress is happening, even if you don't see it immediately. Step 3, visualize future. You thanking you for showing up today. This is where things get powerful. Instead of just listing gratitude, connect it to your future success. Take a moment to imagine your future self 1 year from now. They've reached the goals you're working toward. They're looking back at today, you, right now, and they're saying, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for showing up today, even when it felt small. Every little action you took got me here. This locks in motivation on a deep emotional level. Because suddenly you realize everything you're doing today is shaping who you become. How gratitude changes the way you approach success. Once you start practicing gratitude daily, something strange happens. You stop feeling like you're behind. You stop thinking, I should be further ahead by now. You stop beating yourself up for not being perfect. You stop feeling like success is always just out of reach. Instead, you start to realize you're already succeeding right now. Because success isn't just hitting goals. It's the process of becoming the person who can achieve them. And the more you appreciate where you are today, the more effortlessly you'll move toward where you want to be. Next up, the Lasting Change Master Plan, creating a strategy for lifelong growth. Now that you've designed future you and locked in habits with success anchors, it's time for the final step. In the next chapter, we'll take everything you've built and create a personalized long-term strategy that guarantees your success continues to grow year after year. Because this isn't just about a 30-day challenge, it's about a lifetime of momentum. Let's build your master plan. Chapter 8, The Lasting Change. Master Plan. Customizing the momentum loop for different areas of life. At this point, you've mastered the momentum loop method and seen how small, consistent actions create lasting change. But here's the key. True transformation isn't just about one area of life. It's about applying this system everywhere. Think of success like a chair. If you only strengthen one leg, let's say your career, but ignore your health, relationships, and personal growth, the chair wobbles. It's unstable. One setback in that single area can throw everything off balance. That's why high performers don't just succeed in one part of life. They build momentum across multiple areas, making their progress resilient and sustainable. So how do you expand this system beyond habits like exercising, reading, or productivity? Let's break it down. Momentum in career and professional growth. The biggest mistake people make in their careers? They only take action when they feel stuck. They wait until they're unhappy in a job. They wait until they're underpaid. They wait until they're burned out before thinking, okay, now I should focus on my career growth. But here's the secret. The people who get ahead aren't the ones who grind the hardest. They're the ones who build career momentum before they need it. How to apply the momentum loop to career success. 1. The 3-minute rule for career growth. Every day, spend 3 minutes on something that builds future career opportunities. This could be sending a follow-up email to a potential mentor, researching one new trend in your industry, writing down a new skill you want to develop. 2. Habit stacking for professional growth. Attach career-building habits to routines you already do. Listen to an audiobook on leadership while commuting. Write down one lesson from your workday before leaving the office. Spend 5 minutes journaling how you want to show up at work tomorrow. 3. Small, consistent wins lead to big promotions. Success at work isn't about giant dramatic achievements. The person who improves 1% every day becomes invaluable in a year. The employee who takes small leadership steps ends up in management. The entrepreneur who tests new ideas consistently builds an empire. You don't have to wait for a big break. Small, daily actions put you in the right place when opportunities come. Momentum in relationships. People tend to think relationships thrive on grand gestures, extravagant vacations, expensive gifts, dramatic moments of romance or bonding. Wrong. What actually builds strong relationships? Tiny daily moments of connection. Think about it. The best friendships aren't built in one deep conversation. They're built in hundreds of small moments, texts, check-ins, inside jokes, and shared experiences. The happiest couples don't thrive because of big romantic gestures. They thrive because of small, daily acts of kindness. Strong families aren't made through one amazing trip. They're built in consistent, simple interactions over time. How to apply the momentum loop to relationships. 1. The 3-minute relationship habit. Every day, spend 3 minutes intentionally strengthening a relationship. Send a thoughtful message to a friend. Compliment your partner on something specific. Check in on someone you care about, just to say hi. 2. Success anchors for deeper connections. Attach relationship-building habits to something you already do. After work, ask one meaningful question to your partner instead of just, "How was your day?" Before bed, text someone you appreciate. Driving home, call a friend instead of mindlessly scrolling your phone. 3. Small acts compound into strong bonds. A 5-minute conversation daily is better than a 2-hour catch-up once a year. A handwritten note means more than a flashy gift. Remembering small details like someone's favorite coffee or a big meeting they had builds trust and connection. If you want thriving relationships, don't focus on big moments. Focus on daily micro moments that make people feel valued. Momentum in health and fitness. Most people approach fitness in all-or-nothing mode. They go hardcore for 2 weeks, then burn out. They think exercise only counts if it's an hour-long sweat session. They try a strict diet for a month, then crash back into old habits. That's why most health resolutions fail, because they're built on intensity, not consistency. But guess what? The fittest, healthiest people aren't the ones who do extreme workouts. They're the ones who move daily, eat mostly well, and never start over because they never quit. How to apply the momentum loop to health and fitness. 1. The 3-minute health habit. If you're short on time, just do something tiny that moves you forward. Do 1 minute of stretching. Drink a full glass of water first thing in the morning. Take 10 deep breaths before eating to avoid mindless snacking. 2. Make health part of your routine, not an extra task. Walk during phone calls instead of sitting. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Do a few push-ups while waiting for coffee to brew. 3. Small health wins stack over time. 5 minutes of exercise daily is better than one big session you skip. One healthier meal per day adds up over time. Moving just a little bit every day keeps your momentum alive. Stop aiming for perfection. Just aim for consistency. Momentum in personal growth. We tend to believe that self-improvement requires huge life changes, moving to a new city, quitting our jobs, or overhauling everything. But personal growth happens in tiny, invisible moments. The books you read, the conversations you have, the thoughts you allow into your mind. If you want to grow continuously, you don't need a massive reinvention. You just need consistent, small upgrades. How to apply the momentum loop to personal growth. The 3-minute growth habit. Spend 3 minutes a day doing something that makes you better. Read 1 page of a book. Write 1 sentence of reflection. Listen to 1 inspiring podcast clip. Habit stack growth into your day. Listen to audiobooks while driving. Reflect on lessons while brushing your teeth. Write down 1 thing you learned today before bed. Make learning a natural part of life. Follow people who inspire you. Surround yourself with friends who challenge you. Stay curious. Ask more questions. Explore new ideas. The smartest, most successful people don't find time for learning. They build it into their daily life. How to stay in growth mode without feeling overwhelmed. I used to have a neighbor named Phil. Phil was the human embodiment of all or nothing thinking. When Phil got an idea, he went all in with the intensity of a mad scientist who just discovered time travel. But just as quickly as he started, he burned out and quit every single time. One year, Phil decided he was going to be a runner. Not just a casual, I jog on weekends kind of runner. No, he was going to run a marathon. So on January 1st, Phil burst onto the streets in brand new running gear, sprinting like he was competing in the Olympics. He ran 5 miles on day 1, then 6 on day 2. By day 3, he could barely walk. By January 5th, Phil was done. Phil said, "Running's just not for me." Limping back inside and tossing his expensive running shoes into the closet, never to be seen again. 6 months later, Phil announced he was going to be a meditation master. He bought books, downloaded apps, set up a meditation corner with incense and candles. He told everyone, "I'm going to meditate for an hour every day." Day 1, he made it 10 minutes before getting bored. Day 2, 5 minutes. By day 3, he had completely forgotten about it. Phil had a cycle. 1, get super excited about a new habit. 2, go too hard, too fast. 3, burn out, quit, and never try again. Sound familiar? Most people approach self-improvement like Phil. They get hyped up, make huge, drastic changes, and then crash when life inevitably gets in the way. But the people who actually grow long-term, they don't think like Phil. They understand a simple but powerful truth. Growth happens in seasons. The growth versus burnout balance. Phil's problem wasn't that he wanted to improve. His problem was trying to grow at full speed all the time. It's like trying to floor the gas pedal indefinitely. Sure, you'll go fast, for a little while, but eventually your engine overheats and you break down. High performers understand that growth has phases. There are seasons where you push hard, where you take on challenges, build new habits, and level up fast. Then there are seasons where you maintain, where you let progress sink in, focus on consistency, and avoid burnout. Think about athletes training for the Olympics. They don't train at 100% intensity every single day. They cycle through hard training, rest, and steady maintenance. If you want to grow without burning out, you need to master these seasons. How to know if you're in a push season or a maintain season? Most people either push too hard all the time and burn out or go too easy and never see progress. The key is knowing which phase you need right now. If you feel motivated, ready, and excited to take on challenges, you're in a push season. This is when you set bigger goals, stretch yourself, and level up fast. If you feel mentally exhausted, unmotivated, or overwhelmed, you're in a maintain season. This is when you stabilize, reinforce habits, and avoid overloading yourself. Phil's mistake? He thought every day should be a push season. Real success comes from switching between the two. The breakthrough cycle. Why long-term growth happens in phases. I'll let you in on a secret. The biggest personal growth happens right after a plateau. You know that frustrating phase where you feel like nothing is changing? That's actually your brain rewiring itself, solidifying habits, reinforcing skills, and getting ready for the next level. The problem? Most people quit during this phase. They hit a plateau at the gym and think, I'm not making progress, so I should stop. They feel uninspired in their career and assume, maybe I'm not meant to succeed at this. They get bored with a new habit and think, maybe this isn't for me. But if they stayed consistent just a little longer, they'd break through to the next level. This is why top performers trust the process. They know that growth isn't a straight line. It comes in waves. If you push through the plateau, suddenly everything clicks. You reach new heights, and then the cycle starts again. Growth, plateau, breakthrough, repeat. How to stay in growth mode without burning out like Phil. So, how do you actually apply this? How do you make sure you keep growing without overloading yourself? 1. Check in with yourself weekly. Ask, am I in a push season or a maintain season? Adjust your habits accordingly. 2. When pushing hard, plan for recovery. Just like athletes, schedule rest days for your mind and body. 3. When maintaining, keep the momentum alive. Even if you're in a low-intensity phase, don't stop completely. Keep up small habits so you never lose progress. 4. Trust the breakthrough cycle. When you hit a plateau, don't quit. Stay consistent and wait for the breakthrough. Final thought. Phil could have been a champion. Phil had all the motivation in the world. He just didn't know how to pace himself. If he had eased into running, he might have actually finished that marathon. If he had started with 5 minutes of meditation, he might have stuck with it. Instead, he burned out and quit. And the sad part? Most people are Phil. They get excited about change, push too hard, and then give up completely. But now, you won't make that mistake. You know that real growth happens in cycles. You know that success isn't about going all in. It's about knowing when to push and when to maintain. Because the people who win aren't the ones who sprint and crash. They're the ones who stay in the game long enough to break through. How to inspire and lead others using the momentum loop. If you've made it this far, something has already shifted inside you. You're not just someone who tries to change anymore. You're someone who actually follows through. You've seen firsthand how small, consistent actions lead to massive results. You know what it's like to start something and stick with it. But here's the thing about transformation. Once you experience it, you can't keep it to yourself. At some point, you'll look around and see people in your life struggling with the same things you used to struggle with. Lack of motivation, inconsistency, feeling stuck. And you'll want to help them. But there's a problem. Most people don't want to be helped. They don't want unsolicited advice. They don't want to be told they need to change, even if they do. So how do you inspire people to step up without sounding like an annoying self-improvement preacher? How do you help them see what's possible without forcing it down their throats? You lead by example. The secret to influence, becoming the person people want to follow. Nobody is inspired by words alone. Think about it. Have you ever had someone tell you, you really should eat healthier while they're shoving a donut in their mouth? Did you feel deeply inspired? Probably not. People don't change because they're told to. They change because they see someone else doing it, and they start to believe, hey, maybe I could do that too. That's why the most effective way to inspire growth in others isn't to give them advice. It's to become living proof that growth is possible. Because when people see you change, really change, they can't ignore it. When your friends see you becoming more disciplined, they'll start questioning their own excuses. When your coworkers notice your productivity skyrocketing, they'll wonder what you're doing differently. When your family sees you improving your health, mindset, and habits, they'll start thinking, maybe I should try that too. You don't have to push them. You don't have to convince them. You just have to be the example. And sooner or later, they'll ask, hey, what's your secret? That's when you can truly help them. How to lead without annoying people. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they start improving themselves is turning into an unrequested life coach. You know the type. They read one self-help book and suddenly think it's their mission to fix everyone around them. They bombard their friends with unsolicited advice. They lecture their partner about why they need to think more positively. They try to drag people into growth instead of inviting them. And the result? Everyone ignores them. Or worse, people actively push back against whatever they're saying. Here's the golden rule. If someone isn't ready for change, nothing you say will make them change. But if they see you thriving, they'll naturally become curious. So instead of preaching, just focus on living your own transformation. The "hey, what are you doing differently" moment. There's a moment that happens when you've been consistent for a while. At first, nobody notices. You start working out, and your friends don't say a thing. You get up early, and your coworkers don't even blink. You build new habits, and nobody really seems to care. But then, after a few months of consistency, someone pulls you aside and says, "Hey, what are you doing differently?" That's when you know you're making an impact. Not because you forced it, not because you told them to change, but because they saw your results and they want the same for themselves. This is your chance to help, not by giving them a giant lecture on self-improvement, but by sharing what actually worked for you. Keep it simple. Honestly, I just started doing small things every day, and it added up. I stopped relying on motivation and focused on habits instead. I realized I was overcomplicating things, so I just started small and stayed consistent. That's it. Give them a starting point, not a full transformation blueprint. If they want more, they'll ask, and when they do, you'll be there to guide them. Helping others grow makes you grow faster. Here's something most people don't realize. The fastest way to solidify your own growth is to help someone else grow. When you teach something, you understand it better. When you explain what works, you reinforce it in your own mind. When you encourage others to stay consistent, it reminds you to stay consistent too. That's why mentors always seem so wise. It's not because they were born with some magical knowledge. It's because they've spent years teaching what they've learned, which deepens their own mastery. So, if you really want to lock in your transformation, find someone to share this with. Not in an obnoxious, "you should totally change your life" kind of way. Just in a subtle, helpful way. If a friend is struggling with motivation, tell them about the 3-minute rule. If a coworker feels overwhelmed, share how you stopped relying on willpower and started focusing on systems. If a family member wants to get healthier, invite them to do something simple together, like a 5-minute walk. The key? Lead them to the water, but don't shove their face in it. If they're ready, they'll drink. If not, that's okay too. The ripple effect of your growth. Imagine if 5 years from now, someone tells you, "I changed my life because I saw what you did." Wouldn't that be incredible? Your growth doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. When you improve, you raise the standard for what's possible. You show people, without words, that transformation is real. And even if you don't realize it, so someone is already watching you, wondering if they can do it too. Be the proof that they can. Next up, your lifelong master plan, designing your next 10 years. You've built habits, you've reinforced them, you've even learned how to inspire others. But what's next? In the final chapter, we're going bigger. We're going to map out your long-term success strategy, not just for the next few months, but for the next 10 years. Chapter 9, the Lasting Change Master Plan. Imagine waking up 10 years from now. What do you see? Where are you? Who are you with? What kind of life have you built? Most people never ask themselves these questions. They wake up every day, go through the motions, and assume that the future will somehow figure itself out. They think success is something that just happens, a lucky break, a sudden burst of motivation, or some magical moment where everything finally clicks. But here's the truth. Your future isn't a mystery. It's being built right now, one small action at a time. The person you'll be in 10 years isn't some distant, separate version of you. It's just you after 30,650 days of choices. And the hard reality? If you don't consciously shape who you're becoming, life will shape it for you. If you're not intentional, you'll wake up 10 years from now with the same struggles, the same frustrations, and the same regrets. You'll look back and realize you drifted, not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't have a clear direction. But the good news? If you do have a vision, if you decide today who you want to be, you can start making choices that pull you toward that future instead of drifting aimlessly. So let's ask the big question. Who do you actually want to become? The day 1 versus day 10,000 perspective. There are two types of people in life. The first type sees life as a series of disconnected moments. They live in day 1 mode. Every day is random. They make choices based on how they feel in the moment. They react to circumstances instead of shaping them. They never think about where they're headed, so 10 years pass and they look around, wondering, how did I end up here? Then there's the second type, the people who think in day 10,000 mode. These people see life as a long game. They know that every choice, no matter how small, is leading them somewhere. When they make decisions, they don't just think about what feels good today. They ask, how does this impact future me? They don't just think about what they want now. They think about who they want to become. And because they have that clarity, their daily actions align with their long-term vision. Every time they exercise, it's not just about today. It's about being healthy and strong a decade from now. Every time they invest in learning, it's not just about today. It's about being more skilled, more capable, and more valuable in the future. Every time they choose discipline over comfort, it's not just about today. It's about building the kind of character that lasts a lifetime. They don't wait for success to happen. They build it, one day at a time. And the crazy part? When you start thinking this way, it doesn't just change your future. It changes how you feel right now. You stop feeling lost. You stop feeling like life is just happening to you. You start waking up with purpose because you know every action is a step towards something bigger. Why most people never think 10 years ahead. It's not that people don't want to improve. It's that they get trapped in short-term thinking. They only focus on the next week, month, or year, but never a full decade. And there's a reason for that. The human brain is wired for immediate results. It loves quick wins, instant gratification, and avoiding discomfort. Thinking 10 years ahead? That feels overwhelming. It feels too far away to matter. So instead, people focus on quick-fix solutions. They try fad diets instead of long-term health. They chase easy money instead of building wealth. They seek shortcuts instead of real mastery. And that's why they stay stuck. But the people who actually break through, the ones who create lasting change, aren't the ones making impulsive choices. They're the ones who can think long-term and act in alignment with that future vision. Because when you have a clear North Star, a vision of who you're becoming, everything changes. Decisions get easier, discipline becomes natural, and momentum becomes unstoppable. The exercise, meeting future you. Let's do something powerful. Take a moment, close your eyes, picture yourself 10 years from now. Where are you? What does your daily life look like? What kind of energy do you wake up with? Are you stronger, sharper, more confident? Are you financially free with opportunities you never imagined? Are you surrounded by people who challenge and inspire you? Now ask future you a question. What did you do to get here? Because here's the truth. Future you isn't a mystery. They're just you after a decade of daily choices. And today, you get to start shaping that path. Final thought. The future is closer than you think. 10 years might feel far away, but remember this, 10 years ago, that feels like yesterday, doesn't it? The next 10 years will pass just as fast. The question is, will you be intentional about where they lead, or will you drift, letting circumstances dictate your future? Because the most successful, fulfilled people don't have better luck or more talent. They just thought ahead, made small choices every day, and stuck with it long enough to see the results. And today, you get to make that choice. You can keep living in day 1 mode, letting life pull you in random directions. Or you can step into day 10,000 mode and start shaping the future you actually want. It starts now. The 3 pillars of sustainable growth. Now that you've got a clear vision of your future self, you need a strategy that ensures you keep moving forward without burning out, getting stuck, or losing motivation. Because let's be real, motivation fades, life gets messy, distractions are everywhere. If you don't have a system to keep you on track, you'll fall into the same cycle that keeps most people stuck. Starting strong, getting overwhelmed, and slipping back into old habits. And that system is built on 3 key pillars. Pillar 1, the compound effect. Tiny actions, massive results. Most people think success is about big dramatic changes. They assume that in order to transform their life, they need to make a huge leap, quit their job, move to a new city, overhaul their entire routine. But that's not how real change works. Success isn't about making one big move. It's about small, consistent actions that compound over time. Think of it like investing. If you put a tiny amount of money into an investment every day, it doesn't feel like much at first. But over time, the compounding effect kicks in, and suddenly that small habit turns into a massive return. The same thing happens with your habits, skills, and mindset. Read 10 pages a day? That's 650 pages in a year, around 15 books. Exercise for 15 minutes a day? That's over 90 hours of movement in a year. Write 200 words a day? That's a full book in 6 months. At first, these actions seem too small to matter, but over time, they change everything. That's why the most successful people in the world don't just work hard for a short period. They build tiny, repeatable habits that stack up into something massive. And if you apply this compounding principle to your life, you'll wake up one day and realize you've become the person you once thought was impossible. Pillar 2, the balance rule. Growth in all areas, not just one. Ever met someone who's wildly successful in one area of life but completely failing in another? The millionaire who's in terrible health, the fitness coach who's broke, the entrepreneur who has money but no relationships. That's because they focused all their energy on one type of success while neglecting everything else. But real success? It's about balance. The balance rule means growing in all 4 key areas of life: health, energy, fitness, mental clarity, wealth, career, financial freedom, impact, relationships, family, friendships, love, personal mastery, learning, mindset, fulfillment. If any one of these areas is neglected for too long, it weakens the others. If you're successful but your health is failing, what's the point? If you're in peak shape but broke, your stress will kill your progress. If you're making money but neglecting your relationships, you'll feel empty. You don't need to grow in all areas at the same pace, but you need to make sure you're not letting any part of your life collapse. Pillar 3, the flexibility factor. Adapting so you never get stuck. Most people fail because they expect perfection. They create a rigid plan for success, and when life throws a curveball, they panic. They miss a few workouts and think, "Welp, I failed, might as well quit." They break their diet once and decide, "Might as well eat everything in sight." They hit a setback at work and assume, "Maybe I'm just not meant to succeed." But here's the truth. Life is unpredictable. There will be setbacks, failures, and unexpected obstacles. The people who win aren't the ones who never get knocked down. They're the ones who know how to adjust, pivot, and keep going. Think of it like a GPS. When you're driving somewhere and miss a turn, what does the GPS do? It recalculates. It doesn't tell you, "Well, you messed up, might as well go home." It just finds a new route and keeps moving forward. That's how you need to approach your habits, goals, and growth. If your routine gets disrupted, find a way to do a small version of your habit instead. If you lose motivation, adjust your goal to something more exciting. If life throws a curveball, pause, reset, and keep moving. The system that makes success inevitable. When you combine these 3 pillars, you create a system where growth becomes unavoidable. The compound effect ensures that small actions lead to massive results. The balance rule makes sure you don't succeed in one area while falling apart in another. The flexibility factor guarantees that even when life gets messy, you keep moving forward. Most people fail because they rely on willpower and motivation. You won't. You'll rely on a system that makes progress automatic. And when you look back a year from now, you'll be shocked at how far you've come. The quarterly reset ritual, staying on track for life. Imagine you're sailing across the ocean. You've got a destination in mind, your dream life, your future self. You start strong, full of energy and momentum. But as time passes, things happen. Winds shift, waves crash, distractions pull you off course. If you don't stop to adjust your direction, even by just a few degrees, you'll end up miles away from where you actually wanted to go. That's exactly what happens in life. Most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they don't pause to course correct. They start with clear goals, but then life happens. They get busy, stressed, or comfortable. And before they know it, they've drifted far from where they wanted to be. But high achievers, they don't let that happen. They have a system for checking in, adjusting, and making sure they stay on track. That system is the quarterly reset ritual, a simple but powerful process that helps you realign your goals, refocus your habits, and make sure you're always moving forward. Why most people get stuck and how to avoid it. Think about New Year's resolutions. In January, people are on fire. They set ambitious goals, hit the gym, start new habits, and declare, "This is my year." Then February comes. The motivation fades. Old habits creep back in. And by March, most people have completely forgotten their goals. Why? Because motivation isn't the problem. The problem is that people set goals once and then never check back in. But successful people don't just set goals once a year. They revisit, adjust, and reset every few months. That's why the quarterly reset ritual is a game changer. Instead of waiting until you're completely off track to fix things, you catch yourself early. Instead of going through the motions, you reignite your drive every 90 days. Instead of hoping things will magically work out, you actively shape your direction. How the quarterly reset ritual works. Every 3 months, you set aside 1 hour to go through this process. It's simple, but it keeps you locked into long-term success. Step 1. Reflect. What's working, what's not? Start by looking at the past 3 months. Ask yourself, what progress have I made? Celebrate the wins. Where did I struggle? Identify weak spots. What habits have slipped? Catch them early before they disappear. Am I still excited about my goals? If not, why? Most people never stop to reflect. They just keep grinding forward, never realizing what's working or what needs to change. But if you take just a few minutes to reflect, you'll start noticing patterns, things that move you forward and things that hold you back. Step 2. Reset. Adjust your course. Once you've reflected, adjust your strategy. If something is working, double down on it. If a habit isn't sticking, make it easier. If a goal no longer excites you, change it. People get stuck when they cling to old goals just because they set them. Be flexible. Adjust. Make sure you're always working on things that truly matter to you. Step 3. Realign. Lock in your next 90 days. Now, set your next 3-month focus. What's your number one priority for the next 90 days? What daily habits will you commit to? How will you measure progress? Instead of overwhelming yourself with too many goals, keep it simple. Pick one major focus for the next 3 months, something that excites you, challenges you, and pulls you forward. And then, lock it in. Write it down. Set reminders. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. Make sure it's impossible to ignore. The hidden benefit, reigniting your motivation every 3 months. One of the biggest challenges in long-term growth is boredom. When you first start a new habit or goal, it's exciting. You feel motivated. You're making progress. But after a while, the excitement fades. You get comfortable. Things start feeling routine. That's when people quit. The quarterly reset prevents that from happening. Every 90 days, you get a fresh start. You reignite your drive. You remind yourself why you started in the first place. And that burst of energy, it keeps you in momentum forever. How to make this a non-negotiable habit. Most people will read this and think, that's a great idea. I should do that sometime. But the people who actually see long-term results, they schedule it, commit to it, and make it automatic. So right now, before you move on, open your calendar. Pick a date 3 months from today. Label it quarterly reset and block off 1 hour. Set a reminder. Treat it like an unmissable appointment with your future self. Because if you do this every 3 months, your growth will never stop. You won't just hope things work out. You'll take control of your future every step of the way. Final thought. This is how you stay ahead for life. The reason most people never reach their full potential? They lose momentum without realizing it. They set big goals but never check back in. They start strong but never adjust when things stop working. They get comfortable and don't notice they're slipping until it's too late. But you have a system that ensures you never drift. Every 90 days, you'll pause, reflect, reset, and realign. You'll always know exactly where you're headed. And that's why, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you won't look back with regret. You'll look back with pride. Because you didn't just drift. You designed your future on purpose. The final call to action, your lifetime commitment to growth. You've made it. If you're here, it means you've done what most people never do. You've stuck with something long enough to change how you think, act, and operate in the world. You're no longer someone who just talks about improvement. You're someone who lives it. But this book was never about just 30 days or even just a few months of growth. It was about building a system that makes personal transformation automatic for life. Now comes the real challenge. Will you keep this going? Because this is where most people fail. They do the work, they see results, and then they get comfortable. They let the momentum fade. They slip back into old patterns without realizing it. And before they know it, they're back where they started, wondering how they lost all that progress. But that's not going to happen to you, because you're about to make a decision most people never make. A decision that will separate you from the 99% who start things and the 1% who actually follow through. And that decision is simple. You are committing to growth, not just for now, but for life. The truth about success: you either evolve or you fall behind. Here's the thing about personal growth. You don't get to finish. There's no final level, no "I've made it, now I can relax" moment. Because life never stays the same. The world changes, your circumstances change, your goals and dreams evolve. And if you're not actively improving, you're not staying the same. You're actually falling behind. The people who keep growing, they adapt, adjust, and keep leveling up, no matter what happens. They don't just succeed for a while and then stop. They build systems that ensure they stay ahead year after year. And that's exactly what you've done. You now have a way to create habits that stick effortlessly, a strategy to stay motivated and consistent, even when life gets hard, a system to realign and reset every 90 days so you never lose progress. Now, all you have to do is keep going. The final challenge: locking in your growth for life. Most books end with, "Now go apply what you've learned." But let's be honest, how many people actually do that? We're not going to end on a vague "good luck." We're going to lock this in right now. Here's what you're going to do. 1. Make a public commitment. Pick one person, a friend, partner, coworker, or even post online, and tell them, "I'm committing to my personal growth for the next 10 years. Hold me to it." Why? Because when we make our commitments public, we're 3 times more likely to follow through. 2. Schedule your first quarterly reset. If you haven't already, open your calendar and pick a date 3 months from today. Label it Quarterly Reset. Check in on my growth. Make it non-negotiable. 3. Decide on your next growth challenge. You've built habits. You've reinforced them. Now what's the next level? Is it a fitness goal? A skill you want to master? A financial target? A leadership challenge? Pick one challenge that excites you, something that pushes you but doesn't overwhelm you. Write it down. Make it real. Who you are today is just the beginning. Think about where you were when you started this journey. Now, think about who you are today. You are not the same person. You've changed. You've grown. You've proven to yourself that lasting transformation is possible. But what's even more exciting? This is just the beginning. Imagine where you'll be in a year if you keep going. Imagine where you'll be in 5 years. Imagine who you'll become in a decade. Because the truth is, the real rewards of personal growth aren't in the first few months. They're in the compounded results that happen over years of staying in the game. That's what separates average from unstoppable. That's what turns a few good habits into a completely different life. And that's exactly what you're building. So don't stop. Your future self is waiting. Now, go make them proud. Conclusion: the momentum loop method, your formula for lasting change. Here we are, the final words of this book, but not the end of your journey. Think back to where you started. You wanted change, but like most people, you were stuck in the start-stop cycle. Maybe you believed you lacked willpower. Maybe you thought success was for other people, people who were naturally disciplined, lucky, or just built differently. But that wasn't true. What you needed wasn't more motivation or a stronger mindset. You needed a system that works with your brain, not against it. And that's exactly what the momentum loop method gave you. It was never about forcing change. It was about creating small, repeatable wins that stacked up automatically. Let's go back to the 3 steps that made this possible. 1. Micro-action mastery, the 3-minute daily wins. Remember when we said big goals set you up for failure? That's because the brain resists drastic change. The trick was making the bar so low that resistance disappeared. That's why we started small. 3 minutes a day. Ridiculously tiny actions that seemed almost laughable, but those tiny actions triggered momentum. They retrained your brain to associate progress with ease rather than struggle. You learned that progress isn't about huge bursts of effort. It's about consistent action that compounds over time. Takeaway: when you master small wins, big wins happen naturally. 2. Identity shift activation, becoming future you. The biggest reason people fail at change? They try to change habits without changing identity. But actions always match who you believe you are. That's why most people relapse. They never upgraded the mental software behind their actions. But you did. You stopped thinking of yourself as someone who tries to change. You started thinking of yourself as someone who follows through. You became a writer because you wrote every day. You became an athlete because you moved your body daily. You became disciplined because you showed up even when you didn't feel like it. It was never about forcing yourself to be better. It was about making small choices that reinforced your new identity. When you shift who you are, your actions follow automatically. 3. The momentum multiplier, breaking the goal plateau. Most people quit when things feel boring or slow. That's why we needed a method to keep you engaged, excited, and always moving forward. Instead of chasing tiny, safe goals, you started thinking 10x bigger. You learned that big goals don't burn you out. Boring goals do. You stopped aiming for the next reasonable step and started stretching beyond comfort. That's what kept you engaged. That's what kept you improving. That's what made change exciting instead of exhausting. When you keep raising the bar, progress never stops. The truth about success, why this formula works for life. Most people think success is about hard work and discipline. But what you've learned is something deeper. The momentum loop doesn't stop after 30 days or even after a year. It keeps going as long as you keep using it. You don't need to rely on motivation anymore. You don't need to try harder. You just need to keep feeding the system. Small daily wins, consistent identity shifts, big, exciting goals that keep you growing. That's it. That's the formula. And if you keep applying it, you won't just maintain progress. You'll keep evolving into the highest version of yourself. Your final challenge: keep the momentum alive. At this point, you have a choice. You can let this book be another thing you read once and forget about. Or you can make the decision that from today forward, you never stop growing. The decision is yours, but something tells me you're not done yet. You've seen what happens when you commit. You've experienced what it feels like to take action, even when you didn't feel like it. You've proven to yourself that lasting change is possible. So here's your final challenge. Keep going. Not just for the next 30 days, not just for the next 6 months, but for life. This is not the end. It's just the beginning. Now go out there and keep building the future you deserve. One last thing. Share your experience. If this book has made an impact on you, if you've felt a shift, built momentum, or finally unlocked a system that works, I'd love to hear about it. Your review isn't just a thank you. It's a way to help others discover what's possible when they stop forcing change and start building momentum. And remember, this is just the beginning. Bibliography. This book is built on a foundation of behavioral science, psychology, habit formation, and peak performance research. Below are the key sources that have informed the momentum loop method and the strategies shared in this book. Books on habits, identity, and behavioral science. Clear, James. Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Avery, 2018. One of the most influential books on habit formation, discussing cue routine reward loops and identity-based habits. Duhigg, Charles. The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business. Random House, 2012. A deep dive into habit formation, habit loops, and how habits drive behavior in personal and professional life. Fogg, B.J. Tiny Habits, The Small Changes That Change Everything. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, 2019. Introduces the Fogg behavior model, showing how small, easy-to-do actions create massive change over time. Baumeister, Roy F., and John Tierney. Willpower, Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. Penguin Press, 2011. Explores willpower as a limited resource and how to structure habits to reduce reliance on self-control. Duckworth, Angela. Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. Scribner, 2016. Discusses how long-term success isn't about talent, but about consistency, persistence, and passion. Scientific Studies on Habit Formation and Behavioral Change. Lally, Philippa et al. How Are Habits Formed? Modeling Habit Formation in the Real World. European Journal of Social Psychology, Vol 40, Number 6, 2010, pp. 998 to 1009. Found that on average, habit formation takes 66 days, not 21, a key insight for long-term change. Baumeister, Roy F. et al. Ego depletion. Is the active self a limited resource? Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, Vol 74, Number 5, 1998, pp. 1252 to 1265. Introduced the concept of decision fatigue and how too many choices drain willpower. Deci, Edward L., and Richard M. Ryan, Self-Determination Theory and the Facilitation of Intrinsic Motivation, Social Development, and Well-Being. American Psychologist, Vol 55, Number 1, 2000, pp. 68 to 78. The Foundation of Intrinsic Motivation and Why Finding Your Real Why Leads to Sustainable Behavior Change. Prochaska, James O. et al. The Trans-Theoretical Model of Behavior Change. American Journal of Health Promotion, Vol 12, Number 1, 1997, pp. 38 to 48. Breaks down the stages of habit change and why most people relapse without a structured system. Books and Concepts on High Performance and 10x Thinking. Cardone Grant, The 10x Rule, The Only Difference Between Success and Failure. Wiley, 2011. Explores why aiming 10x bigger leads to greater results than realistic goal setting. Hardy, Darren, The Compound Effect. Jumpstart Your Income, Your Life, Your Success. Hachette, 2010. Explains why small, consistent actions lead to exponential growth over time. Sullivan, Dan, and Benjamin Hardy, 10x is easier than 2x, How World-Class Entrepreneurs Achieve More by Doing Less. Hay House Business, 2023, discusses how thinking bigger forces breakthrough thinking and removes distractions. Miller, Don, Hero on a Mission, A Path to a Meaningful Life, HarperCollins, 2022, covers why a clear personal vision, like Future You, makes long-term success more achievable. Books and studies on commitment, accountability, and long-term growth. Cialdini, Robert B., Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, Harper Business, 1984, introduces the principle of commitment and consistency, why public accountability makes habits stick. Kahneman, Daniel, Thinking, Fast and Slow, Ferrer, Strauss, and Giroux, 2011, covers how the brain makes decisions, why we resist change, and how to outsmart resistance. Newport, Cal, Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Grand Central Publishing, 2016, discusses how long-term mastery comes from consistent, focused effort, not just quick wins. Final thought. This book wasn't built on motivational fluff. It was built on proven science, real-world case studies, and practical application. Everything you've learned is backed by decades of research in psychology, neuroscience, and high performance. And now, you have a system that works. Keep growing, keep building momentum, and most importantly, keep proving to yourself that real, lasting change is 100% possible. About the author. John Warrior stands at the forefront of personal development and transformational psychology, with over 2 decades dedicated to understanding and facilitating lasting human change. As the principal architect of innovative approaches to personal transformation, he has impacted thousands of lives globally. His journey began at Leiden University, where he earned his PhD in behavioral science with a specialization in psychological change mechanisms. His doctoral research on habit formation and sustainable personal development broke new ground in understanding how individuals can create and maintain positive life changes, laying the foundation for his acclaimed lasting change methodology. Throughout his career, Warrior has seamlessly bridged the gap between academic research and practical application. His behavioral science research has been featured in leading publications, including Psychology Today, The New York Times, and Scientific American. His work has been cited in over 100 peer-reviewed journals, establishing him as a trusted authority in behavioral change and human psychology. His unique approach combines cutting-edge behavioral science with practical implementation strategies, making complex psychological principles accessible and actionable for everyone. This methodology has drawn attention from major corporations, leading to partnerships with companies like Google, Microsoft, and Adobe for employee development programs. Warrior's influence extends through his role as a keynote speaker at major international conferences on behavioral science and personal development. His talks, combining scientific insight with engaging storytelling, have inspired audiences across 5 continents at venues including TEDx events and the World Economic Forum. When not working, Warrior practices what he preaches through daily meditation, regular mountain climbing expeditions, and quality time with his family in California. The Lasting Change Workbook represents the culmination of his extensive research in behavioral science, combining decades of academic study, practical experience, and deep understanding of human behavior into a comprehensive guide for personal transformation. The end.